Chapter 886. The barrier of divine hands weaves the heavens was already up, so the flames didn't hurt her. But Mu Yan found that the spiritual power in her body was depleting quickly. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before she ran out of spiritual power and turned into a charred corpse like the first madam. Not to mention, she still had to maintain the divine hands weaves the heavens on Wei Zi. The consumption of spiritual power was also increasing exponentially. Mu Yan frowned slightly as she strummed the zither. She had to think of a solution as soon as possible. Otherwise, she would be slowly worn down by Ning Zongxiang. However, Ning Zongxiang didn't give her time to think. The raging flame art enveloped the entire hole. He suddenly pulled out the twin mace from his waist and swung it at Mu Yan. There was a loud bang. Mu Yan's body swayed. The barrier enveloped by the divine hands weaves the heavens flickered as if a crack had appeared. And the spiritual power that was already depleting at a rapid pace was burnt by more than half. Ning Zongxiang looked at her pale face and struggled to hold on. He laughed out loud and said, "Let's see how long you can hold on for. It seems that I won't be able to last much longer." Mu Yan sighed slowly. "Ha ha ha, if you obediently admit defeat, crawl under my feet and serve me well, I'll spare your life." Ning Zongxiang laughed even more wildly. The twin mace in his hands had no intention of stopping. However, when the mace swung down again, it didn't land on the barrier. Instead, it hit empty air, creating a splash of sparks on the ground. The already scorching temperature in the room rose even higher. From time to time, wood shavings would fall from the roof. Mu Yan stood a few meters away from Ning Zongxiang. This divine hands weaves the heavens, barrier enveloping her slowly disappeared. And around her, 7 different colored long swords appeared. In the firelight, the corner of the girl's lips curled up, revealing a wanton and disdainful smile. "Since I can't hold on for much longer, then I won't hold on any longer. I'll just take your dog life." Ning Zongxiang looked at the 7 long swords that appeared out of nowhere, his pupils suddenly contracted. Just now, he saw with his own eyes that the zither in the girl's hand disappeared and turned into a 7-colored longsword. And each of these 7 long swords emitted a powerful spiritual power, far exceeding the aura of a 4th-grade spiritual weapon. What kind of treasure was this zither? Could it be that it wasn't a 4th-grade spiritual weapon, but a 5th grade, 6th grade, 9th grade, or even a rarely seen divine weapon? What if this was really a divine weapon? What if he, Ning Zongxiang, obtained a divine weapon? Then why would the Ning family be content in this corner of Minlujie? Did he, Ning Zongxiang, still need to fawn over the sects of the Azure Heaven realm every day and think of every possible way to send his son to a large sect? Thinking of this, Ning Zongxiang's body couldn't help but tremble. The greed and desire in his eyes were even hotter than the temperature in the hole. However, just as he was having a beautiful dream, he suddenly felt a powerful and dangerous aura coming towards him. Ning Zongxiang shuddered and dodged to the side. However, he was still a step too late. With a ripping sound, a large hole was torn in the clothes on his chest. What followed was the pain of his flesh being cut. A bone-deep wound appeared on the left side of his chest. If Ning Zongxiang had not dodged in time, his heart would have been pierced and he would have died. The crystal-clear 7 absolute swords spun around and returned to Mu Yan's hand. Chapter 887. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead, and her face was flushed red from the light of the fire. Ning Zongxiang looks down at his wound, and only raises his head after a long while. But it's not anger that's on his face, but a sinister sneer. "In Minlujie, no one has been able to hurt me for many years. Slut, this time, you've really angered me. However, since you brought me such a precious treasure, I can chop off your limbs and spare your life." Wait until I've sucked dry all the water spirit root in your body, then I'll send you to the next world. Ha ha ha. As he speaks, Ning Zongxiang takes out a porcelain bottle and pours all the elixirs inside into his mouth. Then, he suddenly tears off his clothes, revealing his sturdy body. Mayan's eyes sink. Because she finds that after Ning Zongxiang takes off his clothes, the muscles all over his body quickly bulge as if they're alive. In just a few short breaths, his whole body seems to have doubled in size. His originally handsome and confident appearance now looks like a meatball with twisted muscles and an unbalanced body, making people feel unspeakably disgusted. However, the pressure and spiritual power fluctuations all over his body are growing at a rapid rate. Mayan feels a suffocating pressure. The next moment, Ning Zongxiang's attack arrives. The two maces collide in the air, and a flame suddenly bursts out, transforming into a fire python. It opens its mouth, wanting to swallow Mayan. Mayan quickly waves the 7 absolute swords in her hands, and the fire python is scattered by her. But then, a sharp pain comes from her chest. With a loud bang, Mayan's whole body is bounced out and falls to the ground. The pain in her chest makes her face pale, and blood trickles down from the corners of her mouth. Miss. Are you okay? Weizi cries, Miss, quickly run, don't worry about me, you can definitely run away by yourself, want to run now? Too late. A rough, muffled voice comes from that terrifying meatball. Ning Zongxiang suddenly changes direction and rushes towards Weizi. I'll kill the little slut next to you first, and let you know what the consequences are for defying me, Ning Zongxiang. Weizi's eyes widened as she watched in horror as Ning Zongxiang swung his flaming maces at her. However, before the dual blazing truncheons could break through Divine Hand's defensive barrier, a figure had already scurried over like lightning. The sound of the zither surged, and the twin truncheons were blocked in midair. Mu Yan's hand, which was holding the 7 absolute sword, trembled violently. Her hair and clothes were soaked with sweat. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead. Ning Zongxiang let out a furious roar, and the dual truncheons in his hand smashed down. Tongues of flame danced. Die! Miss! Mu Yan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body was on the verge of collapse, as if she could collapse at any time. However, she still managed to block Ning Zongxiang's attack. Miss, how are you? Weizi doesn't care whether the flames in the hall will burn her or not. She steps forward to support Mayan. As he cried, he channeled water spiritual energy into her body. Mu Yan, however, shakes her off, takes out a pill, and puts it into her mouth. Ning Zongxiang's spiritual power was incomparably domineering, especially after he became like this. After 2 head-on confrontations, Mu Yan felt as if the internal organs in her body had been burnt. With her current cultivation, it would indeed be a bit difficult for her to fight against a half-step core formation cultivator. Chapter 888. I admit that your talent is far higher than mine. If you were given some more time to grow, you might really be able to walk out of Min Lu Jia. But unfortunately, you've fallen into my hands now. Your talent, the artifact in your hands, will ultimately become my, Ning Zongxiang's, stepping stone. Ha 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 ha. I really can't wait to see you under me, to have your water spirit root sucked dry by me. Feeling the coolness brought by the elixir entering her body, Mayan slowly opens her eyes. Contrary to Ning Zongxiang's expectations, there's not even the slightest bit of despair, resentment, or pain on the girl's face, caught in a desperate situation. There's only calmness, as if she doesn't care. Even if her complexion is deathly pale, even if her whole body is soaked in sweat, even if her spiritual power is overdrawn, even if her body is covered in blood. But when she stands up, her whole body is lingering with a kind of disdain for the world, a languid and noble imposing manner. It's as if this woman was born to be high above, born to make people submit to her. Ning Zongxiang's heart thumps, an inexplicable panic flitting through him. But before he could grasp what that panic is, Mayan's wrist has already turned over. Mayan flips her wrist, and the crystal-clear 7 Absolute Sword turns back into the Tian Mo Qin. It's clearly a battle of life and death. Mayan lazily sits on the ground, gently plucking the strings. The melodious sound of the qin is like a gurgling stream, flowing in the air. The originally scorching air seems to become cool under the watering of the flowing water. The worry and fear on Wei Zi's face disappear, slowly turning into a peaceful tranquility. Even Ning Zongxiang is dazed for a moment, then his complexion greatly changes. What are you doing? Why is his mind shaken? The ominous premonition in Ning Zongxiang's heart becomes more and more intense. Based on his long experience, he doesn't even think about it. He crosses the 2 maces in his hands, igniting a raging flame, about to give Mayan a fatal blow. However, without waiting for him to attack, Mayan's body suddenly erupts with a strong white light. That white light spreads out with Mayan as the center, instantly enveloping the entire whole. Star Domain, activate. Ning Zongxiang suddenly feels that his body seems to be pulled by a mysterious force, unable to move. Every inch of his meridians seems to be filled with lead, and his spiritual power can no longer flow smoothly. Demonis, what did you do? Why was it that the moment he was enveloped by this white light, his life seemed to be in the palm of someone's hand, and he no longer had the strength to struggle? Mu Yan slowly stood up, a bright and lazy smile blossomed on her pale face. This is the first time I've tried to use the domain in battle. To be the first victim of my domain, you should feel honored. Ning Zongxiang's eyes widened, and his sturdy body swayed. A look of shock and horror appeared on his muscular face. Domain? No, impossible. How was this possible? How can you have a domain? In the entire cultivation continent, there were very few cultivators who had a domain. Moreover, those people were either grandmasters or rare geniuses. A young girl who wasn't even 20 years old had a domain. How shocking was that? What kind of monster was that? How could such a person appear in Minlu domain? Chapter 889. Ning Zongxiang roars hysterically and rushes towards Mu Yan. His face no longer has the calmness of having the pearl of wisdom in his grasp, only fear and suspicion remain. The curve of Mu Yan's mouth deepens. The Tian Mo Qin in her hand spins a circle and turns back into the 7 Absolute Swords. Whether it's a domain or not, you'll know when you go to hell. Before the voice falls, the tip of the sword gently slashes. In my star domain, I am the only master. The sun, moon, stars, thousands of miles of rivers and mountains, wherever the sword tip passes, it's just a speck of dust. Boom! Ning family, outside the living room. Ning Hai and the others are far away, looking at the hall with smoke and fire from time to time. But only a few of them show a worried and fearful expression. Because they know how strong their master is. No matter how arrogant that woman is, she will eventually become extremely miserable under the master's ravaging. Big Madam didn't run out just now. I'm afraid she's already been affected by the master's raging flame technique and died. Someone sighs. Oh, Big Madam is already old and not liked by the master. The only reason she was able to stay in the position of First Madam was because of the young master, who was rather talented. But now that the eldest young master is dead, Big Madam is naturally useless. She deserves to die. It's a pity for that girl, TSK. She's really a heavenly beauty that captivates even the birds and beasts. If she's willing to obediently submit to the master, maybe the position of Big Madam will be hers in the end. It's a pity that she doesn't know what's good for her, and even delusions of rebelling against the master. I guess the master will still let her live. After all, it's a pity to die like that with a body of ice and jade bones and a stunning appearance. So what if she survives? If she annoys the master, she can only be a furnace at most. That's 100 times more miserable than being the 7th madam. You don't say. Maybe the master will get tired of playing with her and give her to us. With that kind of stunning beauty, even if she's a withered willow, she'll have no regrets after a night of pleasure. Everyone is laughing and talking, when suddenly, there's a loud bang in the hall. The laughter stops abruptly, and Ninghai and the others look at each other. He couldn't help but exclaim, I didn't expect the fight to be so intense this time. The patriarch even collapsed the house. It's a pity for that beautiful woman. I'm afraid she won't even have a corpse left. Before he could finish his words, everyone present widened their eyes in horror, and their voices were forcibly stuck in their throats. When the dust settled, they saw that the person who walked out was not the patriarch in their hearts, Ning Zongxiang. Instead, it was a young girl who was covered in blood and was in a sorry state, but it still couldn't hide her stunning beauty. The girl was carrying 2 people in each hand. One of them was Wei Zi, whose entire body was stiff and her eyes were filled with shock. Mu Yan gently puts her down. Wei Zi stiffens and stares blankly at Mu Yan, unable to say a word for a long time. As for the other, rather than calling it a human, it would be more accurate to call it a bloody corpse. Mu Yan casually throws the corpse in front of Ninghai and the others. Ninghai trembled as he took a step forward. He took a closer look and almost fainted. That corpse turned out to be the Ning family's master, Ning Zongxiang. Ninghai plopped down on the ground, his whole body trembling like a sieve. You killed our master. Chapter 890. Stop. Someone couldn't help but shout, You killed our lord, and you still want to run. Mayan slowly turns around, a bright and languid smile blooming on her face. That smile is so dazzling that everyone's souls are dazzled for a moment. However, the next moment, her sword has already fallen, and the head falls to the ground. Mayan takes back the sparkling and translucent sword that hasn't been stained with a drop of blood, and says unhurriedly, I said, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Do you want to try being eliminated? All the Ning family guards present have pale complexions. They keep quiet out of fear and don't even dare to move. Mayan sneers, then turns and leaves. Wei Zi suddenly came back to her senses and hurriedly caught up with them. The huge Ning family, the huge Big Dipper city, just watch as the girl who killed their lord swaggers away. No one dares to stop her. One day later, the news that the Ning family's lord was beheaded by a girl causes a sensation in the entire Min-Lu boundary. The name Jun Mayan is also known to the people of the Shuzhen continent for the first time. This girl has no background, appearing out of thin air. But in just a few days, she's brought the first family of Min-Lu boundary, the Ning family, to destruction. In Min-Lu boundary, many people are guessing her identity and the sect she's from. The Ning family, who has come back to their senses, mobilizes everyone to find out her whereabouts and avenge their lord. However, Mayan has already quietly left Min-Lu boundary at this time, heading to the Blue Heaven boundary where the sect selection is about to be held. But this time, she doesn't go through the dark green city, where the 2 boundaries intersect to obtain a road guide. She directly passes through the Mirror Moon Mountain, and enters the second boundary of the Shuzhen continent with the identity of an unregistered resident, Blue Heaven. Mirror Moon Mountain Range. Miss, wake up, drink some water first. Wei Zi worriedly helps Mayan up and feeds the cool stream water to her mouth. Her little face is full of worry. Miss, are you better now? A red flame is also flying around her ears. Beautiful sister, you're finally better. I was so worried about Cho-Cho. Mu Yan stretched herself, feeling the power and spiritual energy returning to her body. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." Taking the lotus leaf filled with water, she drinks the water inside in one gulp. The smile on Mayan's face turns into one of rejoicing with lingering fear. The battle with Ning Zongxiang was the first time she had activated her astral domain in battle. The power of the domain was completely beyond her expectations. Ning Zongxiang, who was half a step into the gold core realm and whose cultivation was almost a whole realm higher than hers, was actually unable to fight back under the domain. However, the side effects of the domain were much more terrifying than she had expected. After leaving Big Dipper City, she felt as if all of her strength, spiritual energy, and profound energy had been sucked dry in an instant. His entire body was empty, and even walking was extremely difficult. At this time, as long as the Ning family sent out any nameless pawn, they would be able to tear her into pieces effortlessly. Mu Yan knows that her situation is very dangerous, so she makes a prompt decision and gives up on obtaining the travel permit from Qingli City. Instead, he asked Wei Zi to bring him into the dangerous Mirror Moon Mountain Range. The Mirror Moon Mountain Range stretched for thousands of miles. It was the intersection of the Min Lu domain and the Blue Heaven domain, and it was also the Piling Azure Blue domain. Chapter 891. But there were still very few people in Min Lu Jia who dared to enter the Mirror Moon Mountains to cultivate. The reason was that there were countless mutated spirit plants and ferocious spirit beasts growing in the Mirror Moon Mountains. With the cultivation of everyone in Min Lu Jia, most people would definitely die if they entered the depths of the mountains. Mu Yan brought Wei Zi into the Mirror Moon Mountains, feeling helpless. The Ning family and other sects and families in Min Lu Jia were searching for her everywhere. The reason was, of course, not only because she killed the Ning family's master, but also because they heard that she had at least a 4th-grade spirit weapon. For the people of Blue Heaven Realm and Blue World, a 4th-grade spirit weapon might not be much. But for Min Lu Jia, it was already a powerful treasure that could help a family dominate Min Lu Jia. Mu Yan dared to enter the Mirror Moon Mountains, betting on the fact that the mythological beast aura of the little phoenix would make most of the spirit beasts and spirit plants not dare to approach. As long as she survived the weak period after the domain, there was naturally nothing to be afraid of in the insignificant Mirror Moon Mountains. Now it seems that her gamble was right. Mu Yan put down the lotus leaf and gently touched the little phoenix's head. "Cho is really amazing." The little phoenix immediately flapped its wings excitedly. "Oh, beautiful sister praised me, so happy, so happy." But soon, it shyly said, "Actually, Cho is not amazing, the fat rabbit is amazing." At most, it could make these spirit beasts hesitate to circle around and probe by constantly releasing the pressure of the phoenix. But if the fat rabbit was here, it didn't need to release any pressure at all, and all the spirit beasts would be scared witless and flee. Wei Zi looked at the unreasonably beautiful little phoenix in amazement and admiration, murmuring, "Miss, is this the spirit beast you raised? So beautiful. I have never seen such a beautiful spirit beast." Although it was small in size, not even the size of 2 palms, it was extremely beautiful. "Miss, what breed is it?" Cho, who was praised as beautiful, happily and proudly spun in circles. "Of course Cho is beautiful, Cho is enough." Mu Yan interrupted it with a smile, stretching out her spiritual tentacles to gently stroke the little phoenix's spirit. "Don't spin anymore, you'll get dizzy later. Be a good boy and go back to the space to rest. It's been hard on you to guard me day and night these past few days." Cho stopped spinning, intimately rubbed Mu Yan's face, and flew into the space. Wei Zi has seen Mu Yan take out the Tian Emo Qin out of thin air several times. She already knows that she has space. Other than feeling shocked and envious, there was nothing strange about it. There were a lot of people in the immortal cultivation continent who had a portable space, but there were very few people in Minlu boundary who had a portable space. But in Wei Zi's mind, Mu Yan is no longer an ordinary person in Minlu Jia. What a joke. How could an ordinary person casually kill the overlord of the Minlu realm? It's been hard on you these past few days. Mu Yan patted Wei Zi's head. Under Wei Zi's flattered gaze, he chuckled and said, "You sleep here first. I'll go to the mountains to pick some spirit herbs. We'll set off for Windless Square tomorrow morning." Wei Zi asked in confusion, "Gather spiritual herbs? Miss, do you know anything about spiritual herbs? Why are you gathering spirit herbs?" "Spirit grass, of course it's for alchemy." After dropping this bombshell, Mu Yan casually covered the little girl with a divine hand weaves the heavens and left. Chapter 892. At that time, she would naturally be able to rush over to save him. Mu Yan left, leaving Wei Zi sitting there dumbfounded. After a long while, she muttered, "It can't be alchemy. Miss actually knows alchemy. Heavens, such powerful strength, such a young age." Even Ning Zongxiang, who was half a step into the Jindan stage, was killed. Now, she could even refine pills. Miss. What kind of deity was Miss? Wei Zi slowly fell asleep amidst the chaotic shock in the wind. Mu Yan passes through the Mirror Moon mountain range, but she is somewhat worried. This was because she realized that just like what Wei Zi had said, she really couldn't recognize a few types of spirit herbs. In the Yenmu continent, Mayan could be said to be very familiar with the properties and effects of drafts. Moreover, even if she can't recognize the draft, she can still judge the preciousness of the herb based on the concentration of internal force contained within it. However, it was completely different on the cultivation continent. In the Mirror Moon mountain range, almost all the plants were wrapped in spiritual power. In fact, the ones with the densest spiritual power were the mutated spirit plants with the strongest offensive power. However, the problem was that those mutated spiritual plants contained deadly toxins and could not be used as medicine. Mu Yan searched for a long time, but only found a few stalks of very ordinary spirit grass. And this is because some of the ancient books and records in the Yenmu continent also have a small amount of information about spirit grasses. Idiot! Just as Mu Yan was worrying, she suddenly heard Seven Brilliance's arrogant and disdainful voice. "Don't you know that your flourishing skill has already leveled up? Having a treasure mountain but not knowing how to use it, idiot! Stupid! Stupid! I think you humans died of stupidity." Mu Yan raises her eyebrows and directly schemes over Qi Huang's attack. She senses the Shin musician skills imprinted in her primordial spirit. With this, she discovered that after experiencing the god-slaying thunder tribulation, many of her Shin musician skills have been upgraded to the 3rd level. However, they were all purely support skills that couldn't be used in battle, so she didn't notice them at all. One of them was the flourishing, mentioned by Seven Brilliance. After flourishing was upgraded to level 3, it had another name, Myriad Plants Chirping. Using this skill, all the spirit herbs within the range of the sound of the zither would dance along with her music. All the information about the spiritual herbs would enter her mind through the intertwining sound waves. After understanding the function of myriad plants resonating, Mu Yan was overjoyed. In this way, wouldn't she know all the spiritual herbs in this mountain like the back of her hand? The Tian Mo Qin appears out of thin air. Mayan jumps to the top of a tree and gently plucks the strings. The tinkling of the strings and her fingertips overflowed like flowing water. In the next moment, it was as if countless stars had fallen on this mountain region. They were also like countless fireflies dancing in the green mountains and clear waters. All the plants touched by the starlight began to sway happily. Even those ferocious mutated spirit plants, who just wanted to tear Mayan to shreds and swallow her up, are now also dancing cheerfully. As more and more starlight fell, these plants began to grow at an extremely slow speed. Even under the pitch-black soil, there were tender green sprouts bursting out. The originally dense spiritual energy in the air became even denser and clearer. It was as if he could hear the cheerful laughter of the plants in the mountains, but if he listened carefully, he would realize that it was just an illusion. Chapter 893. But the starlight that was originally twining around the plants begins to fly back into her body. In a split second, it's like there's an endless amount of information pouring into her mind. One book after another records the attributes and appearances of spirit plants open and close in Mu Yan's mind. Earth dragon fruit, 100-deer vine, snake fragrant flower. At this moment, the strange plants of an unfamiliar world completely reveal their true colors. So much so that they yearn for this girl who's exuding a pleasant scent to understand them more, explore them, and then give back a more majestic vitality to this mountain range. Mu Yan falls into a long epiphany and digestion. Just like that, the sun sets in the west, the stars shift, and she's completely unaware. Until she hears the sound of hurried footsteps from below, as well as the woman's anxious and sweet call. Gongzi, Gongzi, please wait a moment. Mu Yan sticks her head out and looks down. She sees that under the tree she's staying under, there's a beautiful woman dressed in purple, running after a man in front of her with large strides. Behind the purple-clothed woman are several men dressed as guards, nervously shouting, "Miss, be careful, don't get separated from us again." But the purple-clothed woman simply doesn't care about what the guards are shouting at her. She rushes forward in large strides, wanting to grab the man's sleeve. Just as her fingertips are about to touch the sleeve, she doesn't know how the man moves, but the sleeve floats away from the purple-clothed woman's fingertips. However, the man still turned around. Through the intertwining branches and leaves, the man's appearance is reflected in Mu Yan's eyes. She's already used to seeing beautiful men, and Di Mingju and Qi Huang's appearances are already top-notch. But the moment she sees this man, Mu Yan still gasps. That ancient poem inexplicably emerges in her mind. The person on the remote mountain is like jade, the Gongzi is unparalleled in the world. Bai Chen is also an unparalleled elegant Gongzi. Qi Huang's appearance can also be considered stunning. But compared to the person in front of her, she always feels that he's lacking the peerless elegance that outshines the mountains and rivers. Perhaps only a disdainful and immortal-like character like Di Mingju could compete with this man in terms of appearance and temperament. Mu Yan appreciates that the gentleman is like jade, unparalleled in the world, with great interest, but she's thinking in her heart. If Di Mingju were here and knew that she was staring at a handsome man, she's afraid that the entire Shuzhen continent's vinegar jar would be overturned. However, just as this thought flashes through her mind, she remembers that she doesn't know where Di Mingju is right now. The joy in her heart dissipates like bubbles, leaving only loneliness and melancholy. She doesn't know if Di Mingju and Xiao Bao are safe and sound right now, and when will she be able to see them again? Little beauty, why did you ask us to wait? Just as Mei Nan turned around, a hooligan's voice rang out from his body. Mu Yan is startled. This handsome man with an unparalleled temperament and peerless style actually had such a wretched tone. However, she soon realized that it was not Mei Nan who had spoken, but the strange spirit beast on his shoulder. The appearance of this spirit beast was very peculiar. Its body was slender, but its head was very large. On its face, it had a pair of large and lively round glasses and a round nose. When it spoke, its expression changed. It looked both funny and wretched, giving people the urge to punch its bell-like eyes. Chapter 894. Mei Nan seemed to have sensed something as he looked towards her direction. Mu Yan's heart jumped. She quickly held her breath and hid herself. Just as she was worried that she would be discovered, she heard the purple-dressed girl ignore the spirit beast's words. She looked at Mei Nan without blinking and said in a coquettish voice, "Young master, thank you for saving my life." She looked at the handsome face of the man in front of her in a daze. The more she looked, the more her heart pounded. Her face turned red and her voice became even softer. "My name is Jiang Xinyu. I am the daughter of the mountain-breaking sect's Heavenly Fire Peak Lord. I was accidentally separated from my subordinates in the Mirror Moon mountain range. If not for young master's help, I would have died. I wonder what young master's name is. Regardless of anything, Xinyu will repay you for saving my life." The mountain-breaking sect was one of the few large sects in the Azure Heaven realm, second only to the Leaf Fire sect. It was a place where many itinerant cultivators flocked to. Before the man could answer, the spirit beast on his shoulder had already shouted, What's there to be polite about? My master didn't help you much. He only helped you when you were being chased by the scarlet-eyed fire leopard. He threw you into a corner so that you wouldn't be a hindrance. What's there to repay for such a small favor?" Mu Yan almost laughed out loud. She managed to hold it in. Jiang Xinyu's expression froze, and the corners of her mouth twitched. But because this spirit beast was Mei Nan's spirit pet, she gritted her teeth and endured it. She adjusted her emotions and looked at Mei Nan affectionately. "No matter what, young master saved this little girl's life. It's only right for me to repay you for saving my life. Xinyu has no other request. I only wish to stay by young master's side and serve you like a cow or a horse. That's enough." These words were said with sincerity and love. Mu Yan shook her head as she watched. She never expected that the girls of the cultivation continent were so straightforward. She didn't even know the young master's name, yet she wanted to serve him like a cow or a horse. However, this man's looks were too outstanding. His eyebrows were like distant mountains and his eyes were like the moon and stars. He was gentle and unparalleled. It was understandable that Jiang Xinyu was blinded by his beauty. However, Mei Nan's expression did not change in the slightest after being confessed to in such a way. "There's no need for that. It's nothing much, so there's no need to repay me." His magnetic and gentle voice was so pleasant that it could make one's ears pregnant. The man's face was naturally gentle and gentle. Even when he was expressionless, he still gave people the feeling of a gentleman with a unique beauty. However, Mu Yan keenly noticed a flash of impatience in the man's eyes. After saying that, the man turned around to leave. It wasn't easy for Jiang Xinyu to meet a man who could make her heart beat faster. How could she let him go? She took a step forward and tugged on the sleeves of the man. "Sir, please wait a moment. You killed that scarlet-eyed fire leopard and that is equivalent to saving Xianyu's life. How can you say that it was as easy as lifting a hand? Your Xianyu's life-saving grace, Xianyu. Xianyu will naturally repay you with my body." She bit her lips, raising her head to look at the man's pitch-black eyes that seemed to contain boundless stars. She said in a tender voice, "Sir, as long as you and Xianyu return to the Jiang clan, not only will Xianyu devote her life to you, she will also guarantee that you will be able to enter the inner sect of the mountain-breaking sect. In fact, even becoming the direct disciple of the sect leader might not be impossible." Chapter 895. Jiang Xinyu believed that the handsome man in front of her would never be able to reject such a condition. In this clear sky realm, many people want to enter the mountain-breaking sect's outer sect but can't. Moreover, she promised him that he would become an inner disciple of the mountain-breaking sect, and in the future, he could even become a direct disciple of the sect master. The man's gaze swept over Jiang Xinyu's hand that is grabbing his sleeve, his face expressionless. But Mayan inexplicably feels that the surrounding temperature seems to have dropped. "Jiang Xinyu doesn't feel anything, Gongzi. I fell in love with you at first sight. No matter how lowly your original position is, as long as you marry me, I guarantee that you will have a meteoric rise in the future. You will marry whoever kills the scarlet-eyed fire leopard? The man's clear voice slowly resounds, still so pleasant that it makes one's heart tremble. Jiang Xinyu thinks that he is finally moved, and excitedly raises her head. Yes, my father has always taught me that a drop of water should be returned with a spring of water. Moreover, Gongzi saved Xinyu's life. I cannot repay such a great favor, so I can only marry. Hearing this, the man's lips slowly hooks up into a shallow arc. In an instant, all the creatures in this world, the scenery of the lake and mountains, are all robbed of their splendor. Truly, there is a gentleman who is like gold, like tin, like jade. Jiang Xinyu is dumbfounded, even forgetting to breathe as she stares blankly. At this moment, the spirit beast on the man's shoulder suddenly jumps down, its body instantly enlarging. Ha ha ha, little beauty, you want to marry me, that's great. Although your looks are only average, this lord will reluctantly accept you. In the future, you have to serve tea, wash this great immortal, and scrub my back. You have to do it well. Jiang Xinyu takes a while to recover from the spirit beast's shrill and excited voice, and stares blankly at it. She sees that the spirit beast that has grown to the height of a person is staring at her with its round eyes, shaking its head and drooling. Jiang Xinyu stutters. What did you say? The one I want to marry is this Gongzi. Who wants to marry an ugly beast like you? The spirit beast shakes its head. Didn't you say that you would marry the benefactor who killed the scarlet-eyed fire leopard? I'm so sorry, but the one who killed that fire-breathing beast was me. Little beauty, why aren't you coming to serve this uncle? Jiang Xinyu's entire body froze. Her bright red smiling face instantly turned pale. She looked at the spirit beast, then at the man. The man's voice was still gentle as he said, the one who killed the scarlet-eyed fire leopard was indeed my spirit beast, Qi Wen. In fact, it was also Qi Wen who helped you up and threw you out of the battle zone at the critical moment. If you really want to repay your benefactor with your body, I won't stop you. Qi Wen immediately raised her voice and said, Did you hear that? My master said so. Little beauty, hurry up and let me have a whiff. As he spoke, he stuck out his wet tongue and licked Jiang Xinyu's face. Ah, no. No. Disgusting beast, get lost. Jiang Xinyu screamed and retreated, her hands waving around. The guards behind her immediately surrounded her and shouted angrily, How dare you? Our young mistress is the daughter of the first wife of the Jiang clan and the daughter of the mountain-breaking sect's peak leader. It is your honor that she has taken a liking to you. How dare you humiliate our young mistress with a beast? Chapter 896. Hearing that, the guards immediately rush over with fiendish expressions. Ha 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 ha, a stinky woman with a crooked nose and slanted eyes, dares to despise this lord, and even dares to covet my master. Look at your stupid appearance, it's simply a toad lusting after swan meat. Qi Wen lets out a shrill laugh, and with a howl, she rushes towards the guards. On the tree trunk, Mayan's pupils slightly contract as she watches the battle in front of her. That Jiang Xinyu and her guard's cultivation is not low. Especially that leading guard, his cultivation has reached at least the 9th rank of abstinence. However, so many people were knocked down by that Qi Wen spirit beast the moment it came face to face. The time it takes for the battle to end doesn't even exceed 10 breaths. Qi Wen arrogantly steps on the chest of the guard leader. Looking at Jiang Xinyu who has already fallen to the ground in fright and shivering, she says haughtily, This lord just happens to lack a plaything. If you still want to repay me with your body, this lord doesn't mind taking you away. Saying that, she also stretches out her claws and scratches Jiang Xinyu. With a tearing sound, Jiang Xinyu's outer clothes are immediately torn. Don't aw. Help, hoo-hoo-hoo, I don't want to be defiled by an animal, hoo-hoo-hoo, if you really can't quench your thirst, I can offer my chrysanthemum to you, please spare me. Pfft. Mayan really can't hold it back. Her figure staggers a bit, and she laughs out loud. This eldest Miss Jiang, isn't she a bit too talented? She actually offered her subordinates chrysanthemum. Sure enough, the people of the Xiuzhen continent have very heavy tastes. Your Excellency has been watching the show for so long, haven't you seen enough? The man's voice slowly sounds, still magnetic and pleasant to listen to, but in Mayan's ears, she feels that it's full of ridicule. As he says that, he pulls down the sleeve that Jiang Xinyu had just touched, revealing a pair of fair and slender hands that seem to be carved out of beautiful jade. Hearing that, Mayan curls her lips, knowing that she can't hide anymore. She can only sway and float down from the treetop. The white-clothed girl floats down amidst the cool breeze and morning dew. Her sleeves flutter, her skin whiter than snow, her elegant bearing unparalleled. Oh! Beauty, a super beauty, ah! Mu Yan's feet haven't even touched the ground when she hears a scream piercing the sky. She was so frightened that her knees almost gave way and she fell to the ground. Just as she came back to her senses, she saw the strange beast that was as tall as a man pouncing toward her excitedly with its huge eyes wide open. Beauty, peerless beauty, let me have a taste of you. Mayan raises her eyebrows. With a slight movement of her mind, the Tian Mo Qin automatically transforms into the 7 Absolute Sword. She raises the tip of the sword slightly. If you have the ability, come and try it out. Qi Wen's body suddenly leaned back and stopped in a hurry. She stopped just before she was pierced by the 7 Absolute Swords. His big round eyes stared at the transparent sword that was just inches away from him. A trace of shock and horror flashed across his eyes. What sword is this? My legs and stomach are actually trembling. The man at the side narrowed his eyes slightly. His gaze swept across the transparent sword and he seemed to be deep in thought. Chapter 897. Pfft. Mu Yan couldn't hold back again. What the hell is this spirit beast? It actually said that its master is a feast for the eyes. Oh, but up close, it's indeed a feast for the eyes. She's hungry just by looking at it. However, when she looks up and meets the man's bottomless black eyes, her heart can't help but palpitate. Before she could distinguish whether that palpitation is fear, aghast, shock, or something else. The man has already moved his line of sight away, faintly saying, Qi Wen, let's go. Qi Wen is clearly reluctant to part with Mu Yan. Looking at her face, she keeps drooling, itching to pounce over and lick it. But when she hears the man's order, she reluctantly turns around and leaves. As she walks, she looks back every 3 steps. Great beauty, we'll meet again. Don't miss my master too much. But if it's you, how about I help you climb into my master's bed the next time we meet? Mu Yan staggers. The man seems to be at the end of his patience. He slaps Qiwen down to the size of his palm, and puts her into the sack. Oh, no, the Qiankuan bag. Even if that guy is about to be caught and put into the sack, he's still screaming, Great beauty, if I help you sleep with my master, can you let me lick your little hand? Don't forget our agreement, aw. Mu Yan's forehead is full of black lines, the corners of her mouth twitching. She's a little sympathetic towards that handsome man now. He had actually raised such a strange spiritual beast. Presumably, his daily life must be very chaotic. TSK. Slut, who are you? You're actually so shameless to eavesdrop on my conversation with Gongzi. Seeing the man's figure disappearing into the jungle, Jiang Xinyu gets up from the ground in a sorry state. She has nowhere to vent her anger, so she immediately roars at Mu Yen. Mu Yen is unhappily accused for no reason. Hey, I say, miss, how can you invert black and white? I was sleeping well on the tree, and you came over to talk to me. Should I cover my ears and not listen? Bastard, who let you sleep on this tree? Mu Yen sneers, Aw. Is this Mirror Moon Mountains your family? I can sleep wherever I want, who are you to care? Saying that, she turns around to leave. Bitch, you're not allowed to leave. Jiang Xinyu shrieked and waved a long whip in her hand. It's all your fault. It's all because of you that the young master refused to marry me, causing me to be humiliated by that beast. It's all because you shamelessly seduced the young master and ruined my plans. I'll definitely kill you today. The long whip whistles as it thrusts straight towards Mayan. Midway, dense steel thorns grow out of the whip at a speed visible to the naked eye. These steel spikes were not the mechanism of the whip, but Jiang Xinyu's ability. Her spirit root was of the metal attribute, and it was a third-grade spirit root. After many years of cultivation, it could be said that she had achieved great success. Jiang Xinyu was very confident in her own strength. However, he didn't expect that he would be beaten up so badly that he couldn't even fight back and was almost humiliated by a beast. It was one thing for this beast to insult her, but he even said that the slut was much prettier than her. He even dared to call her a toad. Jiang Xinyu was about to go crazy. At this moment, she vented all the anger accumulated from being rejected by the peerless young master and being humiliated by the beast on Mu Yen. Chapter 898. Like a flexible snake, the whip makes a turn in the air and whizzes towards Mayan. Jiang Xinyu imagines this slut's face being pierced by the steel thorns on the whip, her face revealing a smug and venomous smile. Paw! However, the next moment, the whip hits empty air and hits the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Jiang Xinyu is shocked to find that the girl's figure has disappeared without her knowing. Without waiting for her to react, Jiang Xinyu suddenly feels a pain in her hand, and the whip leaves her hand. Then, something wraps around her neck and suddenly tightens. Ah! The steel thorns pierce into her flesh. Even if it's not fatal, it scares Jiang Xinyu out of her wits. You, what are you doing? I am an inner disciple of the Mountain Breaker sect, the daughter of the Heavenly Fire Peak's Lord. You touched me, you absolutely won't have a good ending. Mayan sticks her body to her back, chuckles lightly, and carelessly says, What am I doing? Isn't it what you want to do to me? Saying that, she raises the Chiju's sword in her hand and uses the bone-chilling blade to lightly pat Jiang Xinyu's face. Why don't you tell me what you wanted to do to me? How about I pay you back 10-fold, 100-fold? Jiang Xinyu remembers that she was about to ruin Mayan's face just now. Her face immediately turns pale, and her whole body trembles. Don't, I know I was wrong, please spare me, boo-hoo, Jiang Xinyu cries with snot and tears flowing down her face. A puddle of yellow liquid flows under her feet, and a fishy smell fills the air. Mayan frowns in disgust. Then she hooks up the corner of her lips, All right, seeing that you're begging for mercy so obediently, I'll spare your life. Jiang Xinyu thinks that she has escaped a calamity, and is about to rejoice. Suddenly, there's a tearing sound in her ear, followed by a chill. When she comes back to her senses, her clothes have already been stripped. What are you doing? Jiang Xinyu's voice suddenly rises, filled with fear. Mayan says with a smile that isn't a smile, seeing that you're very dirty, I'm helping you clean up. As she speaks, the whip around her neck moves, and suddenly wraps around her body like a snake, firmly tying her up. She also wrapped the tattered clothes around her to cover the sensitive parts of her body. But the problem was, on the steel whip, there were steel thorns formed by her own spiritual power. Now that her entire body was tightly bound by the steel whips, the steel spikes pierced into her flesh, causing her to cry out in pain. Jiang Xinyu wanted to use her spirit energy to control the steel whip. However, he could not use any of the spiritual energy in his dantian. Mu Yan condescendingly looks at her, her peach blossom eyes indolently smiling, but the smile doesn't reach the bottom of her eyes. You've been rejected and humiliated, but you don't dare to look for the person who humiliated you, so you want to vent your anger on other innocent people. If I were that young master, I wouldn't be interested in someone like you either. Jiang Xinyu glared at her fiercely. Her face was covered in snot and tears, but she dared not say anything. You should be glad that I'm in a good mood today and don't want to kill anyone. The 10,000 plants resonating together, that she had just mastered really made Mu Yan's mood very good. In a while, she would go to collect spirit herbs and prepare to concoct pills. Jiang Xinyu's eyes were originally filled with hatred, but when she heard Mu Yan's words and met her gaze, her whole body shivered. She's scared to the point of peeing. Mu Yan sneers, and without giving Jiang Xinyu another look, she turns around and leaves. Chapter 899. Blue Heaven Realm, Windless Square. Wow, Senior Apprentice Brother, this is Windless Plaza. So big. So many sects. Lu Ruoxuan's small face was flushed with excitement. She looked at Pang Yunfei, then turned to the windless square not far away, her eyes full of anticipation. Qin Xiuxiu wore a veil on her face, and the burned scar on her neck had not completely disappeared. She had been unhappy and grumpy along the way, but when she saw the grand scene in Windless Square, she could not help but reveal an excited and longing expression. Although Windless Plaza was a plaza, it was actually more like a concave basin in the middle, occupying an extremely vast area. Many tents had already been set up around the square. The people living in these tents were all cultivators who had come to participate in the sect selection or to watch the show. This was because the Azure Heaven Realm sect selection that happened once every 4 years would usually take a few days. There were no residences around Windless Square. Therefore, many disciples could only sleep on the ground or build a tent for temporary residence. Even so, there were countless people who came to Windless Square to try their luck every year. This was because, to many itinerant cultivators who had no power, influence, or background, the sect selection was the only chance for them to change their fate. In the center of the square, there was a dazzling golden palace. It was surrounded by dense spiritual energy, making people yearn for it. However, this palace was not built on the square a long time ago. It was a treasure of the Leaf Fire sect. It was called Dream Palace, a rather low-level Sumera mustard seed. For cultivators above the Gold Core realm, with a slight movement of their divine sense, the Sumera mustard seed would enlarge and shrink. For example, the Dream Hall was the treasure of a highly respected elder of the Leaf Fire sect. The Almighty turned into a majestic palace while the Lesser stood on his palm like a pagoda. Of course, the Sumera mustard seed could not be used as a storage space. Therefore, even if a cultivator accidentally obtained a Sumera mustard seed, they would not keep it in their hands. Because if they were not strong enough, it could be snatched away at any time. However, the Leaf Fire sect was obviously not afraid of others coveting it. To take out such a treasure at the sect selection would only attract the envy of countless cultivators and sections. At this time, Lu Ruoxuan and the others were excitedly looking at the Dream Palace, their eyes shining. I heard that the elders who came to select disciples from the major sects are now living in this palace. Pang Yunfei murmured, if we perform outstandingly in this sect selection and are chosen by any of the elders, then it would really be, what was it? That was naturally a meteoric rise, reaching the heavens in a single step. Qinshuoxiu grunted and said with a proud look, I will definitely become a Leaf Fire sect disciple. Yo, you're quite ambitious. Suddenly, a rascally voice came from the side, you guys seem to be from Minlu Jia, right? Hee, trash from the Minlu world wants to enter the Leaf Fire sect. Toads are getting better and better at dreaming these days. As he spoke, a few men surrounded him. The man who just spoke had a pair of wretched eyes constantly sweeping over Lu Ruoxuan's face and Qinshuoxiu's voluptuous figure. His gaze was extremely lascivious. You two little beauties, if you are willing to play with this master can guarantee that you can enter the outer sect of a large sect. How about it? As he spoke, he had already touched Lu Ruoxuan's face. Lu Ruoxuan was so scared that tears welled up in her eyes as she hid behind Pang Yunfei. Chapter 900. As he spoke, he took out the token in his bosom. Lu Ruoxuan and the others were also scared out of their wits, and hurriedly took out their passes. The wretched man who surrounded them took a look at the pass, sneered, and casually tossed the pass. So what if you have a pass? You're still trash from Minlu Jia, do you really think you can enter a large sect? It's your fortune that I like you. As he spoke, he suddenly stretched out his hand and ruthlessly grabbed Qinshuoxiu's full chest. Ah! Qinshuoxiu screamed, and without knowing how, the veil on her face fell, revealing her chin and neck full of scars. When the wretched man saw this scene, he immediately revealed a disgusted expression, and retreated several steps. Damn it, I thought it was a pretty little girl, I didn't expect it to be an ugly monster. Disgusting to death. Qinshuoxiu trembled with anger. She was the daughter of a Bright Moon sect elder, and her appearance was outstanding. She had always been sought after, when had she suffered such humiliation? The wretched man did not even look at her, but walked towards Lu Ruoxuan. Little beauty, it's still your soft skin and tender flesh that suits my appetite. How about it, do you want to consider serving me for a night? I guarantee you. The wretched man's words had not finished when his voice suddenly stopped. His gaze unblinkingly fell not far away, his mouth slightly open, saliva dripping, obviously completely dumbfounded. In fact, it was not only this wretched man who was dumbfounded. All the men in this area looked in one direction, their eyes lifeless, their faces full of infatuation. Qinshuoxiu angrily looked over, then her whole body trembled, the knife scar on her face twisted a few times, and her whole face became ferocious and terrifying. Not far away, on the small path leading to Windlass Square, two figures were slowly coming over. The one in front was a woman in white. Her clothes were extremely ordinary, there was no makeup on her face, and there was not a single ornament on her head or body. But it was such a simple adornment, on this young girl, that was devastatingly beautiful, unparalleled in the world. Her skin was fine and smooth, with a pink glow. Her eyebrows were bright, and her talent was natural. Her grace was as bright as spring, as bright as the moon in autumn. Everyone was dumbfounded and dumbfounded. It was even to the extent that in an instant, even the dirty thoughts of blasphemy were thrown to the back of their minds. But when Qinshuoxiu and Lu Ruoxuan saw who it was, their eyes widened and their hearts surged. You slut, why are you still alive? Qinshuoxiu finally couldn't help but scream at Mayan. Mu Yan raises her eyebrows, casting a sidelong glance at her. Even a slut like you can live, why can't I? Qinshuoxiu gritted her teeth and said, impossible. How was this possible, oh? Shouldn't you have already been by the Ning family, Oh. What did the Ning family do to me? Mayan's eyes are cold and serene. Step by step, she approaches Qinshuoxiu. How do you know that I should have been killed by the Ning family? Qinshuoxiu's voice was stuck. Lu Ruoxuan's eyes flashed with panic. She quickly pulled Qinshuoxiu. Miss, we meet again. It's really fate. My senior sister is just holding a grudge over what happened in the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant that day, so her attitude is not good. You mustn't lower yourself to her level. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with you, and I don't want to have fate. Mayan said slowly, what's more, I'm not interested in lowering myself to the level of a mad dog. Chapter 901. Mayan chuckles, whoever answers is naturally a mad dog. You slut, I'm going to kill you. Chinshosho madly rushes over, wanting to scratch Mayan's face. Especially when her own face was ruined by Mayan, she can't tolerate Mayan's devastatingly beautiful appearance. However, before her hand can touch Mayan, she is casually lifted by the collar. Slap 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 slap. For slaps, exactly the same as that day in Heavenly Fragrance brothel. Chinshosho's face instantly swells into a pig's head, the scar on her chin is even more protruding, making her look exceptionally ugly. Mayan casually throws her away, unhurriedly saying, what? Do you think that the previous lesson wasn't big enough, so you want me to teach you another lesson? Girl, don't go too far. Lu Ruoxuan loudly says, even if we almost caused you to be defiled by Ningdashao in Heavenly Fragrance brothel, we didn't mean it. My senior sister has already been taught a lesson and suffered a lot. How can you still be so overbearing? We came to participate in the sect selection, and in the future, we may even become fellow apprentice sisters. Why can't we get along peacefully? As soon as Lu Ruoxuan says this, the surrounding practitioners immediately start discussing loudly. Heavenly Fragrance brothel, is it that brothel I know, Heavenly Fragrance brothel? These people are all from Minlujia, and there's only one Heavenly Fragrance brothel in Minlujia. Oh, I didn't expect that such a stunning beauty would actually be a prostitute in Heavenly Fragrance brothel, and even be defiled. Weizi anxiously shouts, don't talk nonsense, my miss has not been defiled, she's not a prostitute. Shut up, don't talk nonsense. Miss Lu, you still haven't clarified, there's no such thing. In the Shuzhen continent, although the people are civilized, they don't completely care about a woman's chastity. Especially those prostitutes who sell their bodies, they are the most inferior and lowly existences, and are looked down upon by everyone. Weizi didn't expect that Lu Ruoxuan would make everyone misunderstand that the miss is a prostitute with just a few words. How could she endure this? Lu Ruoxuan seemed to be startled by Weizi's roar. Her body shivered and she said with a sobbing tone, I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I just wanted to protect senior sister. I really didn't mean to make you young Master Ning's cultivation furnace. I'm sorry. It would have been better if she hadn't explained. Once she did, it would be tantamount to confirming the fact that Mayan had been defiled. Weizi was about to go mad with anger. You're slandering us. Our young miss wasn't defiled at all. You clearly know that it was young Master Ning who was beaten up by our young miss. Chinshosho laughed heartily and said, we don't know whether she was defiled or not. We only know that this woman was taken away for a few hours. When she came out of young Master Ning's room, her clothes were disheveled. However, looking at her happy face, I don't think she was forced to do it. Instead, she was very willing to do it. Didn't I say it back then? A slut like you and that filthy place in the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant are very compatible. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding people burst into an even greater uproar. She really is a whore that everyone can play with. Then, can I go and play with her too? Don't you think it's dirty to play with a plaything that has been defiled by others? Chapter 902. Chinshosho became more and more pleased with herself when she heard the discussions around her. However, although these people were whispering, none of them actually came forward to take liberties with her. She seemed to have suddenly thought of something and immediately shouted, "That's right, this bitch doesn't have a travel permit." She also came from Minlu Jia, but she definitely doesn't have a travel permit. You can play with her however you want. As soon as he said this, the eyes of the surrounding male cultivators suddenly lit up. No travel permit. That meant that they could ravage and humiliate him at will. Even if he died, they could just throw him into the wild forest in the mountains and be done with it. If there was a travel guide, then it would implicate the interests of Minlu domain worshipping the Azure Heaven domain. Those in power in the Azure Heaven domain would have to give some face to the big shots of Minlu domain. Therefore, although the wretched man just now was talking nonsense to Lu Ruoxuan and the others, in fact, they still wouldn't care if he really made a move, especially in this windless square where the big shots gathered. But the girl in front of him didn't have a travel permit. The wretched man swallowed his saliva and took a step forward. You really don't have a cross-world travel permit? Mu Yen carelessly says, so what if I don't? Ha ha ha, you dare to be so arrogant without a travel permit? The vulgar man laughs wildly, and immediately steps forward to grab Mu Yan's face. Since there's no road pass, let me have some fun. This is my first time playing with a woman in front of so many people. TSK TSK TSK, just thinking about it makes me excited. 10 breaths later. Screams came from the mouths of the vulgar man and his subordinates. The dozen or so menacing men were now lying miserably on the ground. Their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen. They were missing arms and legs. Mayan's foot is stepping on the vulgar man's chest. Smiling brightly, she asks condescendingly, "Excuse me, may I ask, what do you want to play with me?" The vulgar man's body convulsed, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted from fright. Mayan kicks him away, and her clear and cold gaze sweeps over everyone present. A heavenly voice slowly rang out, "Who else wants to play with this lady? Why don't you stand out now?" Everyone present took a step back in unison and kept quiet out of fear. Mayan's line of sight turns and falls on Chinxiuxiu. Chinxiuxiu's face was full of horror as she retreated step by step. Don't act recklessly. This is Windless Square. The elders of the major sects are watching. If you dare to touch me, don't think you'll have a good time. Hearing this, Mu Yan's footsteps slightly paused. Chinxiuxiu thought that she had grasped her weakness, and immediately laughed arrogantly. What's more, which one of my words isn't true? You've already been defiled in the heavenly fragrance brothel, and you're no longer a virgin. You shameless whore, even if you really kill everyone here, you won't be able to change this fact. Furthermore, you killed the young master of the Ning family and offended the Ning family. Even if you manage to escape for a while, you will definitely be caught by the Ning family one day. When the time comes, you'll die without a complete corpse. Chinxiuxiu originally thought that her words would make everyone look down on Mayan even more, that they would be able to humiliate and trample on her even more unscrupulously. The Ning family was nothing in the Blue Heaven realm. But he was the overlord of the Minlu domain. Moreover, the tribute they offered to the several major sects of the Blue Heaven realm every year was the highest. Even for the sake of these tributes, the people of the Blue Heaven realm would probably send this slut back to the Ning family. Chapter 903. However, as soon as Chinxiuxiu finished speaking, she realized that the surroundings were quiet. Everyone looked at her with brilliant expressions on their faces. Chinxiuxiu was puzzled. Even if these people from Azure Heaven realm looked down on Ning family, they didn't need to show such disdain, pity and sneer, right? Ning family. She's talking about the former overlord of Minlu realm, Ning family. But wasn't Ning family exterminated? That's right. Ning family's patriarch was killed by an unknown woman, and died without a complete corpse. Ning family lost its backbone. In the beginning, they were still shouting to hunt down the murderer, but within a few days, they were divided up by several major forces. This woman came from Minlu realm and actually doesn't know that Ning family no longer exists. TSK, I wonder who the woman who killed Ning family's patriarch is. Ning Zongxiang's cultivation is already half a step into the Gold Core realm. Even in Azure Heaven realm, he can have a place. But many people had tasted the taste of power, and naturally would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. So Ning Zongxiang's cultivation was obviously very high, but he would rather be the overlord of Minlu realm than come to Azure Heaven realm and grovel. But who would have thought that such an overlord would be killed in a single night? And the one who killed him was a woman whose true face no one knew. This matter not only caused a sensation in Minlu realm, but also caused quite a stir in Azure Heaven realm. Many people were discussing who the mysterious woman who could kill Ning Zongxiang was. When Chen Xiuxiu and Lu Ruoxuan heard these discussions, they widened their eyes in shock. After getting the travel permit, they left Green City and cultivated at the periphery of Mirror Moon Mountain, hoping to get a good result in the sect selection this time. So they were completely unaware that Ning family had already been exterminated. However, they knew that Mu Yan had been taken away by the Ning family. At that time, they all thought that Mu Yan and Wei Zi would undoubtedly die. But now, not only did Mu Yan not die, but instead, Ning family was exterminated. And it was exterminated by a woman. Who was that woman? Could it be this woman in front of them? No. How was this possible? This woman was younger than Chen Xiuxiu, and at most about the same age as Lu Ruoxuan. Although she was powerful, how could her cultivation be comparable to Ning Zongxiang, who was half a step into the Gold Core realm? How could she kill Ning Zongxiang? How could he destroy the Ning family? Chen Xiuxiu stared at Mu Yan, but her voice was extremely soft and broken. Only Mu Yan and the others could hear it. Did you kill your master Ning? The corner of Mu Yan's mouth hooked up, and she said with a smile that was not a smile, why don't you guess? No, impossible. But that day, I clearly saw you being taken away by the Ning family. It can't be. How could you possibly kill family head Ning? Chen Xiuxiu was completely incoherent, and her eyes were filled with shock. Mu Yan sneers. She suddenly reaches out and clasps her neck, abruptly tightening it, so it seems that the people who informed the Ning family to capture Wei Zi were indeed you. Do you want to know how Patriarch Ning died? Why don't you ask him in hell? Chen Xiuxiu's eyes widened in horror and she struggled desperately. No, help. Mu Yan flicks her finger, and a pill rolls into Chen Xiuxiu's mouth. Chen Xiuxiu desperately wants to vomit the pill out, but Mu Yan only exerts a little force and the pill slides down her throat. Chapter 904. With a wave of Mayan's hand, Pang Yunfei awkwardly falls to the ground, falling flat on his face. Lu Ruoxuan anxiously cries, "How can you do this? My senior brother didn't do anything wrong to you. Why do you have to do this to him? You've gone too far, boo-hoo." As she cries, she looks at the cultivators around her. "We may be fellow disciples of the same sect in the future. Do you want to watch him kill my senior sister?" The surrounding female cultivators scoff, looking down on her act of seeking sympathy and help. Just now, it was clearly this group of people who provoked her first, but now she's crying like a pear blossom in the rain, looking like she was bullied. But when those male cultivators see Lu Ruoxuan's crying appearance, they inexplicably feel pity for her. Their chests swell up, wanting to do anything for her. Lu Ruoxuan gives people the impression of being kind, pure, delicate and pitiful, like a little white flower that can arouse people's desire to protect her. Thus, someone roars and rushes forward, making a move on Mayan. However, in just one face-to-face encounter, he's beaten to the ground by Mayan, wailing pitifully. Lu Ruoxuan caresses Pang Yunfei, crying even harder, her voice hoarse, full of guilt. I was wrong, everything is my fault. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Let go of my senior sister and these innocent people, okay? They only wanted to help me. What did they do wrong that you had to let them suffer such heavy injuries? At the side, Wei Zi is so angry that she's about to cry, her whole body trembling. It was clearly them who attacked Miss first. If Miss didn't fight back, did she just let them beat her? And you? She points at Lu Ruoxuan, agitatedly saying, at that time, in order to protect your senior sister, you deliberately pushed Miss out, saying that she has a water spiritual root, and let her be sacrificed as a furnace. Miss herself had the ability to kill Ning Yuqing. This is something that everyone in Tianxiang Lu saw. Miss was not defiled at all, but you slandered Mississippi. It's clearly your own fault, but you make it sound like Miss has wronged you. You woman, you're simply too vicious. Wei Zi, this little girl, has always been very timid and introverted, incoherent in front of the public. But now, she's cursing so much in one breath, without a whole sentence. She's obviously very angry. Lu Ruoxuan's crying face froze for a moment. Especially when everyone's gazes were focused on her face, it made her face burn uncontrollably. She didn't know what had happened to her just now. Seeing Mayan being stunned by so many people's attention, seeing her snatching away everyone's attention, seeing her stunning appearance, his heart inexplicably welled up with a trace of jealousy. Unknowingly, those slanderous words couldn't come out. But now, she regretted it. Lu Ruoxuan felt that she was a kind and pure person, a pure girl like a white lotus. She was different from her senior sisters. She had the purest and softest heart. That was why her senior brothers loved and pampered her so much. She could not let anyone think that she was jealous. Lu Ruoxuan takes a deep breath and walks in front of Mayan. With tears in her eyes, she says, Miss, I let you down at the Heavenly Fragrance House that day. Although I have already apologized to you, if you are still not willing to forgive me, then you can kill me or torture me as you wish. I only ask that you let the others go. The surrounding people were already biased towards Mayan due to Wei Zi's angry rebuke. Chapter 905. Alas, since you've already apologized, let's forgive and forget. That's right. The little girl is so kind and pure, even if she did something wrong, it certainly wasn't intentional. Mayan smiles faintly, kill or cut, do as you please. Are you sure? Meeting those deep peach blossom eyes, Lu Ruoxuan shudders. Her voice, which was originally unafraid of death, is suddenly stuck in her throat. Girl, you shouldn't be so overbearing. This great aunt likes to be overbearing. Mayan sneers. At the same time, her movements are as fast as lightning, lifting her foot and ruthlessly kicking Lu Ruoxuan's abdomen. She let out a blood-curdling scream and flew out. No one can react at all. No one thought that Mayan would actually make a move. Without waiting for Lu Ruoxuan to get up, she has already stepped forward, grabbing Lu Ruoxuan's collar and slapping her face 4 times. That kick just now was payback for pushing me out as a sacrifice. Now, these 4 slaps are for snitching on Wei Zi's whereabouts to the Ning family, causing her to almost lose her life. Lu Ruoxuan's swollen face has lost its beauty, but it still looks pitiful. No, I didn't, Mayan sneers. If you don't want people to know, then don't do it. Do you think I don't know that with your ability, you can track other people's spiritual roots? Lu Ruoxuan's eyes widen, aghast. How did she know? Mayan turns her wrist, and an elixir appears on her fingertips. You martial sisters have repeatedly challenged my bottom line. Do you really think that I'm a vegetarian, compassionate person? Just now, your senior sister has already eaten one. You said to kill or cut, do as you please. Now, shouldn't you take the initiative to swallow this elixir? Lu Ruoxuan desperately shakes her head in horror. No, no. I don't want. It's obvious that this elixir is highly toxic. If she swallows it, she'll die. At this moment, Lu Ruoxuan no longer cares about maintaining her pure, kind, and pitiful image. Her whole person struggles like a madman. This is the holy land of the sex selection. Who dares to make noise here? A loud shout suddenly resounds. A bright light flashes through Mayan's eyes. From the beginning, she felt that Lu Ruoxuan was not simple, and now she was even more convinced. This woman's luck seemed to be a little too good. His words were also very provocative. He could tell that she had a water spirit root even without using her spiritual power. At such a critical juncture, there was no hindrance for her to abuse Chinchuxiu. But if she wanted to teach Lu Ruoxuan a lesson, all kinds of obstacles would appear one after another. While he was deep in thought, he saw a slightly plump middle-aged man striding over. Seeing the middle-aged man, someone exclaimed, "That's the mountain-breaking sect's heavenly flame peak lord, Jiang Dehai." Oh my god! The mountain-breaking sect is a large sect that is second only to the leaf fire sect at this sect selection. If only I could enter the mountain-breaking sect, it would be great, even if it was just an outer sect. Hearing Heavenly Fire Peak Lord Jiang Dehai, Mu Yan's brows twitched. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. If he remembered correctly, the Jiang Xinyu whom he had stripped naked and taught a lesson to in the Mirror Moon mountain range was the daughter of the mountain-breaking sect's Heavenly Fire Peak leader. However, Jiang Dehai shouldn't know that I taught his daughter a lesson, right? You dare to bully others in this windless square, it's enough to show that you, woman. Chapter 906. Looking at Mayan's face, Jiang Dehai unconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. For a moment, he stuttered, "Woman, aren't you a little too fierce?" Mayan sneered and released her grip, letting go of Lu Ruoxuan. Lu Ruoxuan quickly hid behind Jiang Dehai in fear. Her face was pale and her body was trembling. Her voice had a sobbing tone, but she still managed to thank Jiang Dehai. Thank you, senior, for saving my life. If not for you, Ruoxuan would probably, tears streamed down her eyes. Lu Ruoxuan was like a small white flower in the wind, trembling gently. She was pure and flawless, making people feel pity for her. Jiang Dehai was stunned by Mayan's beauty, but at this moment, it was replaced by pity for Lu Ruoxuan. He looked angrily at Mayan and said coldly, "You dare to harm such a weak and pure girl. A person like you wants to participate in the sect selection. My mountain-breaking sect will never accept someone like you." Mayan crossed her arms, smiling faintly. There was no trace of fear or regret on her face. "Sorry, what mountain-breaking sect? I've never heard of it and I'm not interested." After saying that, she gave Lu Ruoxuan a meaningful look, then turned to leave. Lu Ruoxuan trembled under her gaze, feeling a chill run down her spine. Jiang Dehai was trembling with anger. What kind of attitude is that? Bring her back. Martial Uncle Jiang, forget it. Suddenly, a hand reached out and blocked Jiang Dehai's path. It was unknown when, but a tall man holding a folding fan had appeared beside Jiang Dehai. This man's looks were not outstanding, but his clothes and accessories were extremely luxurious. Someone immediately recognized him. Oh. He is Li Fire Sect Elder Qian's nephew, and also Elder Qian's personal disciple, Qian Hongxiao. The moment this was said, the crowd erupted. Li Fire Sect's Elder Qian was the organizer of the sect selection. Although that treasure, Dream Palace, was not his, it was still controlled by him. And this Qian Hongxiao was Elder Qian's nephew, and also his personal disciple. His status was naturally extremely noble. He was even more popular than Jiang Dehai. Even Jiang Dehai immediately curbed his anger and treated Qian Hongxiao politely. The surrounding people immediately surrounded Qian Hongxiao, wanting to please him. A few female disciples of the Bright Moon sect, including Qin Xiuxiu and Wu Fangyi who had put on their veils again, surrounded Qian Hongxiao and stroked their hair seductively, hoping to attract his attention. Even Lu Ruoxuan revealed a timid expression as she greeted Qian Hongxiao with watery eyes. Qian Hongxiao's gaze only lingers on Lu Ruoxuan's face for a moment before he pushes through the crowd and walks towards the direction where Mu Yan left. Qin Xiuxiu's face twisted. She shouted at the top of her lungs, "Young Master Qian, that woman has already been defiled in the heavenly fragrance brothel. She is also a shameless woman, you must not be deceived by her." Although Mayan has fed her the medicine, Qin Xiuxiu still doesn't feel anything wrong with her body when she circulates her spiritual power. She felt that it must be Mu Yan's bluff to scare her. Originally, in the cultivation continent, there were very few people who could refine pills, and in Min Lu domain, pills of 3rd grade and above were very rare. Chapter 907. Mu Yan leaves the crowd and finds a secluded corner to hide in. Wei Zi blindly follows, her little face still full of indignation. "Miss, that group of people from the Bright Moon sect is really too much, they actually slandered Mrs. Clean reputation in public." Mu Yan shrugs her shoulders, but it doesn't matter. What clean reputation does she have? Her son is already 5 years old. What's more, she and Di Mingju, thinking of those intimate times in the Yanwu continent, Mu Yan blushes a little and feels a little disappointed. She also doesn't know how long it will be before she can see this man again. "Miss, I'll set up the tent and prepare dinner for you. The sect selection in the Windless Square won't start until tomorrow, so they have to spend the night here." Mu Yan blinks. "No need, just make do with it for one night." Unfortunately, the little girl Wei Zi simply ignores what she says and excitedly goes to busy herself. Mu Yan smiles helplessly and casually lies down on the lawn. She gently fishes in the space and fishes out a book. But what she wants to see isn't this book, but the painting inside it. The man in the painting has an incomparably handsome face, his expression is cold, but his brows are full of affection. His clothes are half open, and he's lazily lying on the couch. His whole body exudes a powerful charm and sexiness. It makes people want to pounce on him and strip off the remaining clothes on him. In fact, after the two of them got together, Mu Yan once had the mood to make Di Mingju pose again to draw. Unfortunately, every time before she could finish drawing, she would be pounced on by some beast burning with lust, and wiped clean. So much so that up until now, Mu Yan only has this one portrait of Di Mingju. "Miss, the night is bleak and you're alone, do you need this Gongzi's company?" As she's engrossed, a voice suddenly comes over. Mu Yan abruptly comes back to herself and puts away the painting in a very bad mood. She looks at the visitor. No matter who it is, they deserve to die 10,000 times for disturbing her appreciation of her man. Qian Hongxiao looks at her from afar and feels that this girl's appearance is truly 1 in a million, incomparably beautiful. Now that he's looking at her up close, that skin of ice and bones of jade, those white teeth and starry eyes, it's like the most beautiful and alluring painting, unfolding before his eyes. Qian Hongxiao had never seen such a beauty in his life. He couldn't help but feel aroused, and he couldn't help but take a few steps forward. Mu Yan looks at him coldly. "Didn't your parents teach you that it's rude to disturb others without permission?" Qian Hongxiao didn't feel the slightest bit annoyed when he was asked about his parents. Instead, when he saw the frosty expression on her face, his heart itched even more. He coughed lightly and waved his fan in a cool manner. "I am the personal disciple of the Leaf Fire sect's elder Qian Hongxiao." After saying this, Qian Hongxiao waited for Mu Yan to reveal an expression of surprise and adoration, and then he excitedly stuck to her. Who knew that Mu Yen would only look at him like he was an idiot? What do you think you are? What does it have to do with me? She waved her hand like she was shooing away a fly. Go back to where you came from. Don't disturb my rest. Qian Hongxiao was surprised, and anger flashed in his eyes. However, very quickly, he chuckled and took a few steps closer. Miss, do you want to rest? It's so lonely to be alone. How about I accompany you? As he spoke, he stretched out his hand, wanting to hug Mu Yan's waist. Mu Yan mercilessly raised her foot and kicked him. Qian Hongxiao's body quivered as he quickly dodged. Following that, he looked at his lower body and felt a chill down his spine. Chapter 908. This time, Qian Hongxiao was really annoyed. Smelly whore, don't be so shameless. Back in the Heavenly Fragrance Building, you have already slept with thousands of people. For this young master to take a fancy to you is a blessing accumulated over several lifetimes. Do you really think that a trash from the Min Lu domain like you can pass the selection and enter a large sect? Let me tell you, if you obediently follow this young master might even let you enter the Leaf Fire sect as my concubine. Without saying a word, Mu Yen flicked her finger in the air. There was no Tian Mo Qin, but there was zither music in the air. Following that, countless swords flew towards Qian Hongxiao. Paw! 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 These swords did not take Qian Hongxiao's life, but they slapped his mouth and tongue. In just a moment, Qian Hongxiao's mouth swelled like a sausage mouth. Even his tongue was swollen and numb, making him unable to say a word. He stared at Mu Yen in shock and anger, opening his mouth and making a vague sound. Mu Yen sneered, "Your mouth is too dirty, so I'll clean it for you. If you think it's not clean enough, this lady doesn't mind working hard again." With that, her hands hung in the air, as if she was about to play again. Qian Hongxiao was scared out of his wits. With a scream, he scrambled away. Wei Zi came back carrying the tent's materials and ingredients. Seeing Qian Hongxiao's disheveled back, she could not help but ask, "Miss, who was that?" Mu Yen curled her lips, "A lunatic." Wei Zi did not mind, and immediately busied herself like a hard-working bee. She was very useless. She could not help the young miss with anything, but at least she had to serve the young miss comfortably. Mu Yan looked in the direction of Qian Hongxiao's departure. People from the Leaf Fire sect. It seemed that it would be troublesome for her to enter the Leaf Fire sect in this sect selection. But so what if it was troublesome? Mu Yan sneered. She had always been best at cleaning up trouble. In order to achieve her goal, she had to compromise and feign civility. She would rather use her sword to sweep away all the obstacles in front of her. The next day, the sect disciple selection officially began. The first round was very simple. It was to test the spiritual roots attribute and level. The windless square, which had already become lively in the past few days, was now even more crowded, densely packed with people. Of course, not all of them were here to participate in the sect selection. This was because the sect selection criteria were usually very harsh. Even if it was the foundation of the outer sect, even if it was the first round of the qualifiers, they would need to have at least a third-grade spirit root. Many people were actually here to watch the show. Of course, there were also young men and women who hoped to find young geniuses with extraordinary talent to be their dual cultivation partners. There were even some people with impure spiritual roots and ordinary talents who were willing to become the concubines of these young geniuses. When young women saw handsome young men, they would throw fruits and flowers at them, hoping to attract their attention. Mu Yen stands in the crowd, watching this lively and interesting scene, and can't help but feel happy. She knew that the people of the cultivation continent were open-minded and the girls were passionate and unrestrained. First, there was, "Monarch, I'm pregnant with your child, and then there was Jiang Sinyu's bold request to marry him. Now, these young ladies looked as if they couldn't wait to snatch these young talents home. While he was watching with great interest, the crowd suddenly burst into enthusiastic screams. Chapter 909. Mu Yan looked in the direction of the voice and saw the attendant outside the Moon Dream Hall call out a name. Immediately, a handsome youth walked into the hall. It was this youth that had caused the crowd to scream. Who is that? It would be great if I could become his Tao companion. That's Enchantress, right? I advise you to stop dreaming if you want to become his Tao companion. He has a second-grade fire elemental spirit root, and his cultivation has already reached the 3rd stage of Anidia. He was rumored to be the #1 genius of the Min Lu domain a few years ago. No matter how much of a genius he is, he still came from a junkyard. He's just a dwarf that's higher. If he was that powerful, he wouldn't have entered a small sect without any resources or fame 4 years ago. He would be participating again this year. Don't say that. Enchantress is considered powerful. I heard that his goal this year is the Leaf Fire sect's inner sect. Pooey, this kind of trash can't even compare to a finger of our young Master Qin. The people of the Azure Heaven domain had always looked down on the trash of the Min Lu domain. Even someone as talented as Enchantress was often looked down upon. The people of the Min Lu domain were obviously indignant, but they were lacking in strength, so they could only be angry without saying a word. Although the spirit root test was held in the Moon Dream Hall, the hall's doors were wide open. The scene inside could be seen clearly, and the voices could also be heard clearly. There was a circle of people sitting in the hall. These people were the elders or elite disciples sent by the various sects to participate in the sect selection. There were at least a dozen people surrounding him. Sitting at the top were the Leaf Fire sect's elder Qian Feng and his nephew, Qian Hongxiao. The atmosphere in the hall became extremely solemn and dignified because of the presence of these dozens of people. Some of the cultivators who had never seen such a grand scene were already trembling in fear when they saw this scene. During the spirit root test, they could not even circulate their spiritual energy smoothly, resulting in them being eliminated. But such a mistake would clearly not happen to Enchantress. With his back straight, he calmly stood in front of the stone pillar used for the spirit root test. He bowed to the surrounding elders in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, and then placed his hand on the stone pillar, circulating his spiritual energy. Moments later, the stone pillar lit up with a translucent white light. The white light stopped rising and illuminated most of the stone pillars. Second grade upper grade fire spiritual root. Jiang Dehai shouted excitedly. Not bad at all. Enchantress, your results this time are much better than 4 years ago. The level of one's spirit root could also be raised, but it was extremely difficult. Only the most precious heaven and earth treasures refined into pills, coupled with cultivation techniques, could remove the impurities in the spirit root bit by bit. 4 years ago, Enchantress's test result was only a second-class mid-grade fire spirit root, but today's test result was already second-class high-grade. This was beyond many people's expectations. The crowd outside was in an uproar, all of them looking at Enchantress with envy as he walked out of the hall. Right at this moment, the attendant outside the Yin Mang Hall shouted again, Blue Heaven Realm, Chini Zhou. At this moment, the commotion in the crowd turned into an uproar. Young Master Qin. It's young Master Qin. He is the #1 genius of this generation in the Qin clan. His spirit root must be of a higher grade than Enchantress. A young man in his 20s walked out of the crowd. Chapter 910. He walked into the Yin Dream Hall with his head held high, and proudly placed his hand on the testing stone pillar. In a split second, the stone pillar lit up with a resplendent light. The entire stone pillar was completely filled with light, leaving only a small part at the top unlit. This time, even Qian Feng could not sit still. He suddenly stood up from his seat and approached the stone pillar to take a closer look. Grade 1 Medial Grade Wind Spiritual Root. It really is a Grade 1 Medial Grade Wind Spiritual Root. Good, you are very good. Qian Feng patted Qin Yizhou on the shoulder, his face filled with love. Perform well, the Leaf Fire Sect's doors will be open to you. Qin Yizhou's face was still arrogant, but a look of joy flashed in his eyes. He bowed towards Qian Feng and left. In the grand hall, the other sect's elders all looked at Qian Feng with envy. It seems like the Leaf Fire sect has obtained another good sapling. That was a Grade 1 Medial Grade Wind Spiritual Root. Even in the entire cultivation continent, it was extremely rare. When Qin Yizhou left the Yin Dream Hall, he was naturally pursued and envied by many. For a time, the entire plaza was filled with the name Qin Yizhou. Mu Yan also stared at Qin Yizhou a few times. This youth's cultivation level was not as high as Ning Yuqing's, probably only at the 9th rank of abstaining from grain. But Mu Yan could feel that in terms of strength, he might be higher than Ning Yuqing. Qi Huang. Mu Yan suddenly asked in her heart, will this testing stone pillar be able to detect my true spiritual root attribute? In the Yanwu continent, Qi Huang had told her not to expose her moon's spiritual root, or it might attract danger. If this stone pillar could detect her moon's spiritual root attribute, then she could only give up on the sect selection. What a joke! Qi Huang's disdainful voice came from beside her ear. How can this crappy stone detect moon's spiritual root? Don't worry about it. In the cultivation continent, as long as you do not activate your moon's spiritual root, no one or any magical item can detect your moon's spiritual root attribute. In fact, before the moon's spiritual root was completely fused, even in the cultivation continent, not many people could detect it. Mu Yan heaved a sigh of relief. This fellow Qi Huang is unreliable in many matters, but regarding the Shin musicians and the moon's spiritual root, as well as some ancient secrets, this fellow knows them like the back of his hand. He didn't know that this guy was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years, yet he still looked like a jade-like youth. You actually said that Ben Zun is an old monster. Qi Huang stomps his feet in anger in the space. Your man Di Mingju is the old monster. Old. Demon. Strange. Humph. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitches. She doesn't want to bother with this guy. Because of Yin Tianze and Qin Yizhou, these two monstrous geniuses, the Xiuzhe that went in to take the Ling root test did not cause any more waves. There were thousands of people who participated in the sect selection. There were very few who could pass the first round of the spiritual root aptitude test. Especially those who came from the Min Lu domain, it was already very good if 1 out of 10 of them had a 3rd-grade spirit root. These people did not have much hope in their hearts, but they still wanted to take a gamble. In the end, they could only return in disappointment. But even if they passed the test, most of them only had 3rd-grade spiritual roots. Like Yin Tianz's 2nd-grade high grade, and Qin Yizhou's 1st-grade middle grade, no one else appeared. Min Lu domain, Chen Xiuxiu, come and take the Ling root test. Chapter 9-11. Min Lu Jia, Chen Xiuxiu, 3rd-grade water spirit root, test passed, next round of examination. Min Lu Jia, Wu Fangyi, 3rd-grade wood spirit root, test passed, next round of examination. Min Lu Jia, Peng Yunfei, 3rd-grade fire spirit root, test passed, next round of examination. 3 people passed in a row, and all of them were from Min Lu Jia. The surrounding practitioners finally became restless again. These people are not only from Min Lu Jia, they're all from the same sect, Bright Moon sect. I didn't expect Bright Moon Sect to have gathered so many talented practitioners. The people of Bright Moon Sect held their heads high and puffed out their chests, extremely proud. Only Chinshosho found it hard to calm down. She knew her spirit root was 3rd grade, but a 3rd grade spirit root could not enter the inner sect of a large sect. So in this period of time, she had used her father's authority to collect worldly treasures, hoping to increase the attribute of her spirit root. She hadn't expected that after so many, it was still 3rd grade. At this time, someone shouted from Moon Dream Hall, Min Lu Jie, Lu Ruoxuan, come and have your spirit root tested. Lu Ruoxuan timidly walked out, her slender figure slowly walking into Moon Dream Hall like a small white flower that could be blown away by the wind at any moment. When she walked into the hall, she did not see where she was stepping and stumbled, almost falling. Her small face immediately showed a tearful expression, so sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. Jiang Dehai had seen Lu Ruoxuan before. Seeing her delicate appearance, he hurriedly comforted her, don't be afraid, you just need to put your hand on the stone pillar and inject spirit energy. Lu Ruoxuan obediently nodded, walked in front of the stone pillar, and carefully put her hand on the stone pillar. The elders of the other sects couldn't help but smile when they saw her act like this. This little girl was like a little rabbit, really lovable. Only an old man in ragged clothes was sleeping soundly in the corner. The youth standing next to him couldn't help but twitch his mouth when he saw Lu Ruoxuan's appearance. She's actually the small white flower type that 4th Shiji hates the most. If 4th Shiji was here, she probably wouldn't be able to restrain herself. Lu Ruoxuan put her hand on the stone pillar and channeled her spirit energy. In the next moment, the originally dark gray stone pillar suddenly lit up. The light shot straight up and stopped after passing more than half of the stone pillar. After a moment of silence in the hall, someone exclaimed in surprise, It's actually a 2nd-class medium grade would attribute spiritual root. I didn't expect that a mere Min Lu domain would produce another genius besides Yin Tianze. Little girl, come over here and let us have a look at your cultivation. What spells have you learned? Lu Ruoxuan seemed to be startled. Her body shivered for a moment before she timidly walked in front of the elders. It's really a piece of unpolished jade, completely unpolished. My mountain-breaking sect wants this young lady. Your wind and thunder pavilion better not fight with me. Are you kidding me? This little girl has a single wood spiritual root. She's obviously more suitable for our 5 spirit sect. The commotion in the main hall was naturally seen and heard by the people outside. Everyone in the Bright Moon sect was boiling with excitement. Pang Yunfei said proudly and dotingly, Jean has really done our Bright Moon sect proud. I remember that junior sister Lu's spirit root was only 3rd grade last year. I didn't expect it to become 2nd grade mid-grade now. Chapter 9-12. No matter what, at this time, my Minlujie's Minhua sect has really gained a lot of face. The people of the Minhua sect are all proud, except for Chinshosho. She fiercely stares at Lu Ruoxuan's figure as she comes out of the hall, her eyes full of jealousy and resentment. That spirit grass, she remembers that spirit grass. Back then, she was clearly the one who saw that spiritual herb first. However, because it grew on the edge of the cliff, she couldn't pick it, so she asked senior brother Pang Yunfei for help. Who knew that after Pang Yunfei picked the spirit grass, he directly gave it to Lu Ruoxuan because she wanted it. Now, because of this spirit grass, Lu Ruoxuan became a 2nd-class spiritual root, but what about her? After taking so many elixirs and accumulating pill toxins, she still only has a 3rd-class spiritual root. Why? That spirit grass should be Chinshosho's, right? 2nd-class spiritual root and the attention of everyone, should also be Chinshosho's. Lu Ruoxuan trots back to Pang Yunfei and the others. Listening to the envious and amazed praises of the people around her, her face shows a happy smile. Just then Minlu Jie's Jun Mayan, come here for the spiritual root test. The crowd that was originally noisy because of Lu Ruoxuan's second class would spiritual root test quiets down in a flash. All eyes fall on the woman who slowly walks into the hall. Someone gasps, there's such a stunning woman in this world. Jun Mayan, which sect is she from? How come I've never heard of her before? Fortunately, this is a competition of strength. If it was a beauty contest, I'm afraid that Miss June would undoubtedly be the first. In just a moment, all the attention on Lu Ruoxuan and the Minhua sect disappears without a trace. The faces of the Minhua sect's people are incomparably unsightly. Especially Chen Xiuxiu and Lu Ruoxuan. Chen Xiuxiu grits her teeth as she stares at Mayan's back. Slut, she still has the face to come out. Lu Ruoxuan grits her teeth, her little face is pale, and she's on the verge of collapse. Jean, are you all right? Pang Yunfei quickly supports her. Lu Ruoxuan raises her head, her hazy teary eyes filled with fear and grievance. Senior brother, I did let Miss June down, but I've already apologized. Why is she still not willing to forgive me? Whoa. Jean, don't be afraid. We will soon enter a large sect. This Jun Mayan won't be able to hurt you anymore. Lu Ruoxuan was still trembling, but she can kill the Ning family patriarch. We are no match for her. Pang Yunfei scoffed, Jean, don't be fooled by that woman's bravado. With her age and cultivation, she might be able to kill Ning Yuqing, but how could she kill the Ning clan's patriarch? That Ning family's family head is a half-step golden core. If she had such a cultivation base, would she still need to participate in the sect selection? Lu Ruoxuan's eyes shone with hope. Senior brother, what do you mean? It must be because this woman's luck is too good. She was just captured by the Ning family, and the Ning family was destroyed because they offended a powerful force. But don't worry, Jean, Senior brother won't let her off for hurting and humiliating you like this. Senior brother said that I will protect you forever. Lu Ruoxuan blushed when she saw Pang Yunfei's affectionate gaze. Chen Xiuxiu's face became even more twisted. As soon as Mu Yan enters the Yin Meng Hall, she feels a dozen or so gazes uniformly cast on her. Chapter 9:13. Mu Yan's expression doesn't even change. She looks back calmly. She finds that there are many familiar faces in the hall. For example, Qian Hongxiao, whose mouth was beaten by her last night. His mouth is no longer swollen, but his speech is still slurred because the wound on his tongue is not easy to heal. Seeing Mu Yan come in, he immediately stares at her. His eyes are full of greed and brutality. He wants to skin her alive and pull out her tendons. Mu Yan's eyes sweep over the unfriendly Jiang Dehai and the enigmatic Qian Feng. Finally, her eyes fall on the corner of the hall and she raises her eyebrows. The young man standing in the corner meets her eyes. He jumps up excitedly and keeps waving, Big sister, do you still remember me? We met in that bookstore. His shout startles the old man who was sleeping soundly on the chair and he tumbles to the ground. After getting up, the old man slaps the young man's head. What are you shouting for? Can't you see that your master is sleeping soundly? The young man covers his head and says, Master, you are here to select disciples for our Xiaoyao school. How can you keep sleeping? Moreover, the big sister I met last time is also here. She is very good at controlling her spiritual power. Master, let's recruit that big sister into our school, okay? Hearing this, the elders of the other sects in the hall shake their heads and show a mocking expression. Everyone here knows that the Xiaoyao school is the most shabby school in the Blue Heaven realm. There are less than 10 people in the school, including the masters and the disciples. The school's encampment is as shabby as a beggar's nest. It is said that they can only wear ragged clothes all year round and have to go hungry from time to time. It is 100 times more miserable than those rogue cultivators. How can such a Xiaoyao school have the nerve to participate in the sect selection? One should know that the so-called selection is not only for the sects to select disciples, but also for the talented disciples to choose the sections. Which cultivator would be willing to go to a shabby place like the Xiaoyao school? However, the old man seemed to be completely unaware of everyone's ridicule. His gaze turned and landed on Mu Yan, and his pupils slightly constricted. Then, all the wrinkles on his face were piled up, and a flower-like smile appeared on his face. Not bad, not bad, not bad, young lady. You're so pretty, you deserve the name of our Xiaoyao sect. Do you want to consider joining us? Is everyone in the Xiaoyao sect this passionate? Mu Yan touched her nose, not knowing how to answer for a moment. Ahem, that's enough. Qian Feng said coldly, let's test the spirit root first. Mayan takes a step forward and places her hand on the stone pillar, slowly activating her spiritual power. A blinding light suddenly lit up, but in the blink of an eye, it disappeared without a trace. The stone pillar returns to its dim and lightless appearance. No matter how much Mu Yan urges her spiritual power, it's useless. What is going on? Even the weakest 5th grade spiritual root would emit a faint light. Also, I think I saw a ray of light just now, even though it was just a flash. Did you see that? I didn't. Mu Yan is also a little confused. Qi Huang, what is going on? Qi Huang's gloating voice comes into her ears. What else can it be? The quality of the stone pillar is too low. Mu Yan, oh. Chapter 9:14. Many of the sect's elders nod. No matter what, the first round of the assessment will be based on the results of the testing pillar. I declare, Min Lu Jie's Jun Mayan, 5th grade spiritual root, failed the assessment. No, impossible. Without waiting for the people inside to finish announcing the results, Wei Zi stumbles in. Miss is clearly very powerful. How could she have a 5th grade spiritual root? Can you guys test it again? Maybe this testing pillar is broken. Yes, it must be this testing pillar that's broken. As soon as Wei Zi's voice falls, she finds that there's silence all around. Inside and outside the hall, there's a burst of laughter. She actually said that the testing pillar is broken. Ha ha ha, how is that possible? The testing pillar has a lifespan of at least 5 years. This testing pillar was specially built for the sex selection. How could it be broken? It must be that the attribute of her spiritual root is too poor. That's why the testing pillar can't light up at all. Chen Xiuxiu's eyes flash with excitement and resentment. She suddenly steps forward and says loudly, I know why the testing pillar isn't responding. Seeing that everyone's eyes are focused on her, Chen Xiuxiu shows a sinister smile to Mayan, and continues, because this woman was a prostitute in Tianxianglu, and was even used as a human furnace to harvest yin to nourish yang. Her spiritual root has already been swallowed up, that's why there's no response from the testing pillar. As soon as these words come out, the audience goes quiet for a moment, then suddenly bursts into a heated discussion. Those people who were originally stunned by Mayan's appearance, upon hearing that she was a prostitute and a human furnace, immediately show a look of disgust. Even the elders in the main hall shook their heads, expressing their dislike for Mu Yan. Wei Zi was so anxious that tears fell from her eyes. No, it's not like that. Don't slander me, it must be this testing pillar that's broken, it must be. She rushes over and injects her spiritual power into the testing pillar, wanting to prove that it's really broken. However, the testing pillar lights up, and the light rises halfway. 3rd grade water spiritual root. This means that Wei Zi is qualified to participate in the next round of assessment, but it also means that the testing pillar isn't broken. Wei Zi's body is on the verge of collapse, and her small face is deathly pale. She's not the slightest bit happy that she passed the assessment. Instead, she looks at Mayan with despair and unwillingness. How could this be? How could it not be broken? If it's not broken, how can it be? How can the miss pass the assessment? Qian Feng coldly snorts, Yin Meng Hall's sacred land. Both of you are eliminated. Leave this place immediately. Wait. Another voice interrupts Qian Feng. Oh. The old man in ragged clothes in the corner, the sect leader of the Xiaoyao school, stands up and shakily walks to Mu Yan. He looks her up and down. Then, he cracked a smile and said, "Young lady, you're really interesting. You were just eliminated, but you're not panicking at all. Mu's sect is, Mu's Mu, sect's Mu's, Mu is Muon. The old, on, the Mu, sect M, Tian, Mu, sect, Mu, Chin, S, on, he. Chapter 9:15. This old man did not have the slightest trace of spiritual power fluctuations, nor did he have any oppressive aura. It was as if he was really just a harmless old beggar. But when he made his move just now, Mu Yan didn't even have the slightest chance to react or resist. This old man's strength was frighteningly strong. As expected, the old man lets go of Mayan's wrist. He doesn't care that his greasy and dirty fingers have left a few black palm prints on Mayan's wrist. He strokes his beard and exclaims, "Sure enough. How many years has it been since this old man has seen such aptitude? TSK, coming here today is really worth it. Old man, sure, why are you stirring up trouble for no reason?" Jiang Dehai said impatiently, "Hurry up and get this dirty piece of trash out of Yin Dream Hall, lest he dirties this sacred hall." Qian Feng also said indifferently, "Throw these two people out and let the next person come in to take the test." Wei Zi's face was full of tears. She grabbed Mayan's hand and said angrily, "Miss, these people are too much. It's obvious that the stone pillar is broken and they can't detect it, but they still want to slander you. Let's go. At worst, we won't participate in the selection." Wei Zi now had a blind admiration for Mu Yan. After all, she had personally witnessed Mu Yan kill Ning Yuqing and Ning Zongxiang. A girl who could kill a half-step gold core realm cultivator, and you said she was trash with a 5th grade spirit root? Wasn't that a joke? Mu Yan patted the little girl's head and said slowly, "The test is not over yet, why should I leave?" As soon as she said this, the faces of everyone in the hall darkened. Qian Feng said coldly, "You want to cause trouble after failing the test. What kind of place do you think this is? Uncle. 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 Arrest. 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 Arrest, this Ning. Bastard Ning. Arrest." Qian Hongxiao shouted excitedly with his tongue hanging out. As long as he captured this slut and brought her back to the Leaf Fire sect, he would be able to freely abuse her in the future. Qian Feng was truly infuriated at this moment. He was about to wave his hand to get the Leaf Fire sect disciples in Yinmeng Hall to capture him. However, the old man suddenly burst into laughter and said, "Ayaya, a group of elders from the major sects have gathered together to select talents, but they are actually blind to not recognize such a fine jade in front of them. This old man is really going to die of laughter. Shiqing, what nonsense are you spouting? He's just a piece of trash with a 5th grade spiritual root that can't even react to the stone pillars. How dare you say that he's a good talent and a beautiful jade? You're the one who's blind. The old man's smile suddenly disappeared, and he faintly said, "This testing stone pillar can't measure the attribute of the young lady's spirit root, because this is the lowest grade testing stone. The quality is too poor, and it's only suitable for selecting mediocre people. If you encounter a real heaven spiritual root, it would be a wonder if you can detect it." The hall was silent for a moment. Nonsense. Nonsense. This testing stone pillar has been used in the blue heaven realm for 100 years, and this has never happened before. I've also heard of the heaven grade spirit root that you speak of. It's a true monster. Even in the azure blue domain and the purple cloud domain, it's a rare genius that only appears once every 100 years. How could it appear in the Minlu domain? That's right, old man, sure. You don't know anything, so don't spout nonsense. The old man stroked his beard and laughed. How about this? This little girl doesn't need to take the test. I'll just take her back to the Xiaoyao sect. Chapter 9:16. Suddenly, the head of the Five Spirits sect stood up. With a flick of his wrist, a dark green stone pillar appeared in front of everyone. "Little girl, come here and take the test again." Because of the special cultivation method of the Five Spirit sect, it had extremely strict requirements for spirit roots. Therefore, there was indeed a better stone pillar in the sect. It just so happened that the head of the Five Spirit sect brought it with him today. Mayan smiled and stepped forward. She pressed her hand on the stone pillar and poured her spiritual power into it. The next moment, the dark green stone pillar suddenly lit up with a dazzling light. The originally dark green pillar actually became crystal clear in an instant, like a bright moon. Inside and outside the Moon Dream Hall, there was a deathly silence. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at this miraculous scene. The light was so dazzling, but they couldn't bear to look away. Super grade 1 water spirit root. When the head of the Five Spirit sect reported the result, his voice was trembling. Wow! This result caused an uproar both inside and outside the hall. The head of the Five Spirit sect reacted the fastest. The moment he reported the result, he grabbed Mayan's hand and said excitedly, "Come to our Five Spirit sect, I promise to give you the best resources. Water spirit root, naturally you can only get the best development in our Cold Moon Observatory." Even Qian Feng couldn't sit still. He revealed a kind and arrogant smile. "The Leaf Fire sect is the biggest sect in the Azure Heaven realm. Little girl, you should know how to choose." Inside the Moon Dream Hall, all the elders were fighting openly and secretly, while the outside was in an uproar. Heavens, super grade 1 water spirit root, it's really super grade 1. I didn't expect that our Azure Heaven realm would produce such a monster. Bah, this Mayan is clearly from our Min Lu Jia. What Azure Heaven realm? Our Min Lu Jia actually produced such a monster. From now on, we will have a change of fortune. Very soon, she won't be. Once she enters a sect in the Azure Heaven realm, she will be one of us. You are too shameless. June Mayan is from our Min Lu Jia. She's obviously from our Azure Heaven realm. Hee, you even said that June Mayan is from your Min Lu Jia. Someone suddenly mocked in a sarcastic tone. Just now, people from the Min Lu sector slandered her as a whore and said that she had been defiled as a cultivation stove. Which sect wouldn't treat a monstrous genius with a first-class water attribute spirit root as a treasure? How could she become a prostitute in the heavenly fragrance brothel? Furthermore, people with superior grade 1 spiritual roots usually had a cultivation speed that was 10 times that of ordinary people. Their cultivation and strength were usually extremely powerful. Could those wastes from Min Lu Jia force Mayan to become a furnace? What a joke! Everyone turned to look at the people from the Bright Moon sect. Their gazes of admiration and envy towards the Bright Moon sect had now turned into disgust and contempt. In particular, the people from Min Lu Jia were glaring at them. It wasn't easy for Min Lu Jia to produce a monstrous genius that could shake the world. If they were to dislike Min Lu Jia because of this, how could they cozy up to him in the future? How could his chickens and dogs ascend to heaven? More people began to doubt the character of these people from the Bright Moon sect. Look at them, all of them are gentlemanly and adorable. I didn't expect their hearts to be so vicious. They actually spread such disgusting rumors and slandered the innocence of this little girl. Chapter 9:17. They clearly know how important reputation is to a female cultivator, but they actually dare to wantonly slander her. These girls from the Bright Moon sect may seem pure and kind, but their hearts are truly vicious. Qin Xiuxiu and the others could hear the sounds of discussion from time to time. The feeling of being condemned by thousands of people caused their faces to turn green and white. The one who was scolded the most was Qin Xiuxiu, who had clamored the loudest, but the one who could not bear the disparity was Lu Ruoxuan. Just a moment ago, she was still the center of attention, an existence that everyone revolved around. But in the blink of an eye, he became an existence that everyone despised. Lu Ruoxuan couldn't hold it in any longer and started to cry. Pang Yunfei looked at her tear-stained face and felt extremely distressed. He quickly ran over to comfort her. Lu Ruoxuan leaned in his arms and sobbed, "I clearly did not scold Miss June, I clearly did not say anything, why did they scold me? Boo-hoo. Senior brother, I'm not that kind of person. I'm not that vicious." Pang Yunfei hugged her tightly and comforted her gently, "Little Jean, don't cry. We all know that you're the kindest. You're not the one who's scolding them. They don't know, so they're venting their anger on you. Who asked us to be from the same sect?" As he spoke, he glanced at Qin Xiuxiu with a reproachful gaze. Pang Yunfei's words seemed to have opened a floodgate, causing the other people of the Bright Moon sect to cast angry and disgusted gazes towards Qin Xiuxiu. It was all because of this woman's willful and reckless behavior that they were now being condemned by everyone. Wu Fangyi directly sneers and says, "Back then in Min Lu Jia, it was because of you that we were caught and sent to Tian Xiang Lu, and little junior sister offended Jun Mayan in order to save you. Now, because of you, we are hated by other practitioners. Qin Xiuxiu, when will you stop making trouble? In order not to implicate us." Qin Xiuxiu trembled with anger as she received the looks of disdain and disgust from her fellow disciples. Pointing at Lu Ruoxuan and Pang Yunfei, her lips trembled and she could not say a word for a long time. When he met Mu Yan yesterday, it was clearly Lu Ruoxuan who first brought up the matter of Mu Yan being taken away by young Master Ning. She was just going along with it, but why was everyone pushing the blame onto her now? You bitch. Not only did you steal my spiritual herb, but you also want to frame me," Qin Xiuxiu screamed and rushed towards Lu Ruoxuan, but Pang Yunfei ruthlessly slapped her in the face. "Qin Xiuxiu, have you had enough? Just because Shang'er is kind and innocent, you keep bullying her. Don't you forget that if it wasn't for her, you would have long been defiled in the heavenly fragrance house as a cultivation vessel." Pang Yunfei glared at her with murderous intent, then hugged Lu Ruomin and said, "Ruomin, you are too kind. Even if it's senior sister, you can't let her do whatever she wants to you. Alright, don't worry about her, let's go." "But she's still senior sister, little fool, she doesn't deserve to be your senior sister." The people of the Bright Moon sect left together. None of them looked at Qin Xiuxiu, who was on the ground. Qin Xiuxiu glared in the direction they left, her eyes filled with a strong murderous aura. At the same time, there seemed to be something boiling and tearing in her blood, hitting her nerves and pushing her rationality to the brink of collapse. Chapter 9:18. Wei Zi pokes her head over, only to discover that there's a small red bug resting on Mu Yan's palm. She was startled, but also a little curious. "Miss, what is this?" Mu Yan put away the little bug and chuckled, "Nothing. It's just an interesting toy." Wei Zi was about to ask again when she suddenly heard a bell ring from the direction of the Yin Dream Palace. This meant that the first round of the sect selection had ended. There were more than 800 people who participated in the spirit root test. In the end, only 87 people with third-grade spirit roots and above were allowed to participate in the second round. Wei Zi listened to the Yin Dream Palace attendants reporting the name list. When she heard that the first one was her miss, she jumped 3 feet high in joy. "Great, miss, you really passed, and your name is even before young Master Qin's." "Heh heh heh, super first-class spirit root. There are only a few in the entire Shuzhen continent. Miss, you're really amazing. This time, our Min Lu domain has defeated the entire Azure Heaven domain." Mu Yan touched the little girl's head and couldn't help but chuckle. This little girl was so happy for her that she probably didn't even notice that she passed the first round of assessment. The second round of assessment would begin tomorrow. Thinking of the content of the second round of assessment, Mu Yan's eyes darkened. She believed that the little toy she put on Chinshouxiu would become more interesting in tomorrow's assessment. On the second morning, Mu Yan yawned and returned to the center of the windless square under Wei Zi's urging. However, what was different from the previous days was that there was no dazzling palace in the center of the windless square. Instead, there was a huge and strange gray-black circular building. Mu Yan tried to explore the bottom of the building with her divine sense, but felt as if her divine sense had fallen into a boundless abyss. She suddenly withdrew her divine sense, her heart jumping slightly. At this moment, the bell rang twice, indicating the beginning of the second round of the sect selection. The method of the second round of selection was very simple. The strange circular building in the center of the windless square was actually another Sumra mustard spirit tool, trial field. But compared to the Yin Dream Palace, this trial field was of a much higher level. It was already a small world. The content of the second round of assessment was that the 87 people who had passed through the first round would each receive a jade plate and enter the training field. A spirit beast called the one-horned rhinoceros appeared in the training field. The rank of this spirit beast wasn't high, but its battle prowess was comparable to a cultivator at the 5th level of the body refinement realm. It could be said that the practitioners who passed the first round, even the ones with the lowest cultivation, could kill a single-horned rhinoceros with their own strength. Their goal was to kill enough one-horned rhinoceroses. Every time a one-horned rhinoceros was killed, 1 point would be added to the participant's jade card. But if you think that you can win by killing enough one-horned rhinoceroses, then you are gravely mistaken. This was because there was another rule in the second round of assessment, which was that they were allowed to snatch other people's jade tokens. Once the jade token was snatched by someone else, the participant would be directly eliminated and sent out of the trial field. The person who snatched the jade token would be able to obtain half of the other party's points. The higher the final score, the higher the chance of being selected by the big sections. The duration of the second round was 3 days. Chapter 9:19. The person handing out the jade card is a disciple of the distant fire sect. When Mu Yan took the jade card, she felt a burning gaze cast at her from the side. Turning her head, she met Qian Hongxiao's greedy and lustful gaze. Mu Yan didn't have the slightest intention of dodging. Instead, her lips curled up, revealing a meaningful smile. Qian Hongxiao suddenly shivered, his body recalling the pain from being taught a lesson by Mu Yan. His face suddenly twisted as he flew into a rage out of humiliation and looked away with a trace of fear. In his heart, he was thinking, Jun Mu Yan, this slut, can only be arrogant now. Sooner or later, she will fall into my hands. At that time, I will strip her naked and make her do this and that. Mu Yan couldn't be bothered with that idiot Qian Hongxiao. Taking the jade card, she walked towards the trial field. Mayan opens her eyes, only feeling a little weak from exhaustion all over her body. Circulating her spiritual power and clearing her mind, it took a while for her to recover. She turned her head to look around and found herself in a deep valley. The scenery of the valley wasn't beautiful, but the air was fresh. Looking around, there was nothing but emptiness, not a single figure. If she hadn't personally walked in from the trial field's entrance, Mu Yan couldn't imagine that the trial field, which looked like a circular building, was actually such a different world. Mu Yan used to live in the Yinwu continent. Although she already knew that there was a heaven beyond the heavens, and that the world after her ascension was filled with bizarre and dreamy. But seeing it with her own eyes, she still found it novel. TCH, a shabby little world can also make you excited. Ignorant woman. Qi Huang's mocking voice came. Mu Yan didn't immediately respond to Qi Huang, but found a secluded place to lie down, and her divine sense entered the space. Qi Huang was bullying little Phoenix while mocking Mu Yan. Suddenly, he felt a shadow cast in front of him. Looking up, he met Mu Yan's smiling eyes. Qi Xiao Huang, you've been mocking me recently, mocking me very happily. As he spoke, his hand was already on the zither, seemingly plucking. Qi Huang's face suddenly changed. Why did you come in? Aren't you going to participate in the assessment? Mu Yan laughed lightly, a malicious smile that made Qi Huang's hair stand on end. How can participating in the assessment be more important than teaching Qi Xiao Huang a lesson? What 7 little brilliance. Woman, I'm warning you, don't go overboard. I'm an ancient artifact spirit. Ha 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 ha. Stop. Stop. Ha 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 ha. I was wrong. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. I was wrong. Ha 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 ha. This deity will teach you. Ha ha ha. Teach you how to use your domain. Ha ha ha. Fight. Mu Yan stopped plucking the strings, using the domain to fight. Didn't I already learn it? Qi Huang panted heavily. Her rosy cheeks and limpid eyes were indescribably charming. But his expression looks like he wants to eat someone, fiercely glaring at Mu Yan. The little phoenix, who was originally being bullied miserably, now arrogantly flew to Mayan's shoulder, letting out a giggle. He looked like a serf who had turned over and started to sing. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.